Chapter 1391. The armies of the various civilizations are gathering. The war is about to begin. Survivors, please find a relatively safe place to hide and wait patiently. As a complete plague apocalypse has been discovered, please do not leave the Gloom Galaxy without permission. Repeat. For the safety of the infinite worlds within the void, please do not leave the Gloom Galaxy without permission. Those who violate this order will be deemed infected by the plague apocalypse and will be immediately sentenced to death. Bam. The ID card was flung away, struck the wall of the teleportation tower, then rolled to the ground. The voice disappeared. Crow complained, "What a bunch of cowards! Can't they tell whether or not professionists like us have been infected by the plague?" "That's not the case." Omaki pushed his glasses up a bit and calmly replied. "We've calculated over 1,000 different types of plague, each of which has a specific method of infection, some of which can't be detected at all. If they were to truly spread, they would destroy countless worlds." Gu Qing-shan agreed. "Against such an apocalypse, we should be careful." He then asked Omaki, "What grade would a complete plague apocalypse be classified as?" Omaki replied, "Unsolvable, most ferocious." Most ferocious? Gu Qing-shan doubtfully asked. Indeed, the tomb of myriad beasts had to face the most apocalypses, so the infinite worlds of the void used their standard, but also refined it. Every major apocalypse can be divided into 3 grades: domination, destruction, and most ferocious. Crow chimed in. Among the unsolvable apocalypses, the complete plague apocalypse surpasses all other apocalypses of the same grade, thus being classified as most ferocious. Omaki replied. Domination, destruction, most ferocious. Gu Qing-shan memorized this, considered it for a bit, then asked in a low voice, "Such a powerful apocalypse still hasn't been classified as unlivable?" Omaki appeared bitter and sighed. "Because within this apocalypse you at least managed to save me. If it really was an unlivable apocalypse, you would have died as well." Above unsolvable was unlivable. No one could survive. No one. Crow added. "It wouldn't just be us who would die, the entire infinite worlds of the void would classify this place as a forbidden zone. No one would be allowed to come here, nor would they gather an army. They would simply abandon this place." At this point, the 3 of them felt a little heavy. Suddenly, the trio's identity nameplates gave out another notification sound. "Notice to all. In a day and a half, the war against the apocalypse will begin." After the announcement, the identity nameplate fell silent again. 1.5 days. In other words, the 3 of them still had to stay in this teleportation tower for a day and a half. Crow muttered to himself, "I'll have to wait for a day and a half. As long as there aren't any issues with the spatial runes on this tower, a day and a half should be enough." Gu Qing-shan was startled and slowly turned to look at him. Unexpectedly, Omaki did the same thing. Not only did Omaki stare at Crow, he also carefully asked, "Excuse me, are you the hitman known as Kurt Death Silver Crow?" "Ah, it's me, why?" Crow was confused. 2 streams of tears flowed down Omaki's cheeks. He turned around to face the wall, took off his glasses, and wiped his tears. "It's over, so it was him. The spatial runes on the teleportation tower will definitely malfunction," Omaki muttered in sorrow. Gu Qing-shan seemed to have guessed something, so she crouched down next to Omaki and whispered, "Is he famous?" Omaki turned to look at Gu Qing-shan and asked in confusion, "Why are you in the same group as him? Do you have nothing left to live for?" Hearing him say that, Gu Qing-shan understood. If that's the case, Crow's ability to speak is actually quite famous. "Hey, I'm listening. You guys are too superstitious about prophecies and whatnot. Everything I've done in the past was just a random act," Crow complained. Gu Qing-shan went silent. He silently sent his voice to Omaki. "Didn't Crow go through a specialized test?" "I don't think they found anything." Omaki also silently sent his voice. "That's right. His ability couldn't be detected at all, because the power of this ability had far surpassed the limit of the detector." Saying so, Omaki took out a piece of parchment and began to write something on it. As Gu Qingshan took a closer look, she saw that it was a will. After a bit of thought, Gu Qingshan sent her voice again. If he really was that powerful, he could have said something completely opposite, like something beneficial to us. Omaki didn't even look up as he quickly wrote and replied. This ability of his doesn't work on good things, only bad things, Gu Qingshan. Then it really is hopeless. Could it be that this tower's spatial runes are actually malfunctioning? This tower's teleportation ability is the culmination of the wisdom and essence of the infinite worlds, which is why it can temporarily resist the apocalypses, lost civilizations, and terrifying monsters outside. If something were to happen to this tower, everyone would die. Gu Qingshan stayed silent for a bit, then took out a pot from her chest pocket. "What are you doing?" Crow asked in surprise. "It's already evening, but I haven't eaten anything for the entire day," Gu Qingshan replied. "I have some dry rations here." Crow took out a wrinkled bag of cold, hard food. Gu Qingshan glanced at it, then said, "Yours won't do." Omaki smiled bitterly. "That's right, even if I die, I'll at least have a good meal and die with a full stomach." He had already finished writing his will. "That's not the case." Gu Qingshan began to take out various ingredients and said, "A sumptuous meal can help us obtain energy, adjust our state, and face more difficult situations with full spirit." A fire was lit. The pot was propped up, a bit of oil was poured in, which quickly gave off a sizzling sound. "We'll eat something hot for dinner. Do you have any objections?" Gu Qingshan asked. The two of them said nothing. This fiend must be a hungry fiend among fiends, Crow silently thought. The Last Supper, huh? This fiend sure has his own ideas, Omaki also thought. Since Gu Qingshan didn't hear any response, she decided to ignore them and directly prepared dinner according to her own ideas. The main ingredient was a large white fish from the stream behind by Huasek's mountain, a delicacy that even Xie Dao Ling loved to eat. Because they were going to face the most dangerous unsolvable apocalypse this time, as well as having two companions, Gu Qingshan specifically cooked a few more. These fish were all cut into fillets with near-perfect knife skills, wrapped in spirit wheat flour, mixed with Xiao Lu's brewed spirit wine, salt, ginger, and other ingredients, then marinated. At this point, the pot was already boiling. Spirit spring water was poured in, 16 special cultivation world condiments were added, a bit of sugar was added to enhance the freshness, then simmered for 7 to 8 minutes on low heat. It's very fresh." Gu Qingshan scooped up a spoonful of fish soup and slowly savored it. A few moments later, the pot was ready. Slices of fragrant fish meat mixed with the thick soup were poured onto a plate, then Gu Qingshan took out a large bucket of special chili peppers and sprinkled them on. Large amounts of bright red chili peppers were sprinkled on top of the jade white meat slices, complemented by the faint glow of the soup. It was enough to make anyone's mouth water at a glance. Gu Qingshan then made 33 batches of her best barbecued pork, shrimp dumplings, shumai, sausage, black bean sauce pork ribs, glutinous rice chicken, fruit crisps, and other snacks, then used her dazzling movements to stir-fry half a pot of seafood fried rice. After that, he thought for a bit, then took out a large wooden box and opened it with a clack. Cold air flowed out, only to see that the box was filled with ice. A box full of strong liquor and other beverages were frozen inside. These were the drinks he prepared for himself after becoming an unsolvable hitman, and now that he's out on a mission, he can finally enjoy them. "We might have to fight later. Drinking too much might cause problems." Gu Qingshan picked out 3 bottles of strong liquor, took them out, then put the wooden box back. 3 sets of utensils were arranged. There was liquor, fried rice, fish, and snacks. A table full of delicious food. "Come, since we're outside, the conditions are limited, you should just eat a bit," Gu Qingshan called out to the two of them. No answer. The two of them were already stunned. There's an unsolvable apocalypse outside, as well as terrifying monsters, as well as the lost Saint Spirit civilization, and you want to eat boiled fish? Crow asked in disbelief. He walked over to grab a set of utensils, took a bite of the fish, then stopped talking. He buried himself in the food. Gu Qingshan poured him a glass of liquor and said, "Eat slowly, no one's going to steal your food." Crow nodded without saying anything else. "You're not coming?" Gu Qingshan then turned to Omaki. Omaki glanced at the will in his hand, then at the pot of fragrant fish meat. The bright red chili caused his mouth to fill with saliva. Gulping, Omaki said, "I want to preserve a bit of dignity before I die, so you're not going to eat?" Gu Qingshan asked. "So I'm going to eat a bit more." Omaki received the utensils and also took a piece of fish meat. "Who would have thought I'd be able to eat something like this?" he muttered, then gulped down a glass of liquor. Seeing the two of them eating, Gu Qingshan didn't say anything else, took her own utensils, and slowly ate. The entire pot of fish meat, as well as the gravy, was swept clean. Crow and Omaki both rubbed their stomachs and leaned against the wall. "Just now you said eating is to adjust your state, so that you can face even more difficult situations with full spirit?" Crow asked. "That's right." Gu Qingshan held a cup of tea and slowly sipped it. "Strange, why do I only want to sleep after eating?" Crow said. He took out a sleeping bag from the void of space, climbed inside, and zipped it up. Omaki was still quite spirited, so he took out a book and began to read by himself. Gu Qingshan smiled and finished the cup of spirit tea in his hand. He stood up, placed one hand on the wall of the teleportation tower, and walked around the entire inner wall of the tower. The War God Skills tab on the War God UI abruptly lit up. Lines of glowing text then appeared. Frowny face. This tower contains the following spatial warp construction methods: E-star spirit warp, super long distance warp, formation of the sorcerer world, dark city type, spatial expeditionary technique, high-grade insect hive, natural warp rune construction method. To comprehend the spatial techniques described above, you will need a total of 27,534,000 soul points. Would you like to learn them? Yes, Gu Qingshan replied. An immense flow of heat flowed from his palm into his body through the inner wall of the tower, then stopped in his thought sea and turned into countless knowledge related to spatial warp. Gu Qingshan stood there, closed his eyes, and quickly absorbed all the knowledge. "What are you doing? Praying for the last time?" At some unknown point, Omaki had looked up curiously at him. A few moments later, Gu Qingshan opened his eyes. "No, I'm just dealing with the crow's mouth," he smiled. Chapter 1392. Gu Qingshan circled around the warp tower, constantly moving around it. He began to observe the spatial runes on the walls. Now, as soon as he saw each rune, he would immediately understand the meaning and usage of the rune, as well as how to create and repair these runes. By the time he finished memorizing all the spatial runes, it was already late at night. There shouldn't be any problems now, Gu Qingshan muttered, then turned to the other two. Omaki was focused on writing something. Crow's sleeping bag was sealed, completely motionless, most likely asleep. Gu Qingshan walked over and patted the sleeping bag. "What is it?" Crow's voice resounded from inside the sleeping bag. "There's something," Gu Qingshan replied. The sleeping bag opened. Crow sat up and cautiously asked, "Did you notice something?" "Nothing, I just wanted to resolve your issue," Gu Qingshan replied. "Ha, I already told you, when I went through a test in Void City, I didn't find any abilities related to the spirit of speech, or for example." Crow paused for a bit, then continued. "I said that 900 worlds are about to fall from the sky and directly destroy the entire Gloom Galaxy, and that's about to happen." Gu Qingshan looked at him, then released her inner sight to observe the wilderness and the stars outside. Nothing happened. Crow shrugged. "I've tried this countless times, but the result is that what I say doesn't always come true. However, there are some exceptions, for example, during combat missions, where we would inevitably face various difficult situations. In truth, as long as anyone is willing to assume the worst-case scenario, they would find themselves in the same situation as me." Gu Qingshan was a bit surprised, then pondered. Things that can turn out to be bad will always turn out to be bad. If you're worried about something happening, then it's very likely that it will happen. Crow slapped his thigh and said, "That's right, as hitmen of our level, the missions we take part in are always the most dangerous of all. If anyone else were to do what I did, as long as they paid even the slightest bit of attention to their surroundings, they would naturally have the same concerns as me, and these concerns would always come from their judgment of the situation, which would eventually prove to be true. So you don't think it's your problem?" Gu Qingshan asked. Crow asked in return, "If it's really my problem, I just said that 900 worlds were about to crash into the Gloom Galaxy. Did that happen?" Gu Qingshan's inner sight continued to extend outwards, observing the night sky. Nothing had happened. Omaki's voice rang out. "You're right. There is indeed such a possibility. It's because things are going to develop that way. You're just analyzing it in advance." He walked to the side of the two of them and continued, "But we have a colleague in the Void Library who once did a research report on misfortune. He did a statistical analysis on the missions of over 300 legend rankers in the entire Void City for the past 10 years and found that you were the unluckiest of them all, having encountered 791 more misfortune than the person in second place." Crow was stunned. Gu Qingshan was stunned. There was a sudden silence. Omaki said apologetically, "I'm sorry, but we're a scientific research institute, so everything is based on data. But I've done a total of 63 different tests, none of them showed that I've been cursed, nor did I have the corresponding ability." Crow jumped up and shouted. Gu Qingshan scowled. "Is there really no way to find out what's going on with him?" "At least, not even Void City's public testing institutions," Omaki pridefully replied. Gu Qingshan's eyes flickered a bit. Crow sighed, appearing a bit lonely. "Fine, regardless of what ability it is, I don't want to know, I never want to know." He turned around and faced the wall. Gu Qingshan looked at him, then at Omaki. Omaki shrugged and made an apologetic gesture. Gu Qingshan fell silent. A few moments later, he stepped forward, patted Crow's shoulder and asked, "Do you know, what's my most powerful ability?" Crow didn't turn around, but was intrigued and asked, "What is it?" Omaki also looked at Gu Qingshan. Gu Qingshan replied, "My most powerful ability at first was dancing with my butt, huh? Crow looked at him doubtfully. "This fiend. Dancing with my butt? Just imagining it shows how shameful that is. How could this fear fiend do something so shameful?" Gu Qingshan continued, "That's right, I couldn't do anything about it, but I didn't give up on this ability. Instead, I gave up on my dignity and continued to train myself." "And then you got a girl?" Crow asked. "No, I got better at dancing, then did a lot of things that others couldn't," Gu Qingshan replied. He took out a bottle of liquor, gave it to her, and continued, "Crow, you're very impressive, but you instinctively avoided this ability. I don't think that's necessary. We should learn more about this ability. After all, there's no such thing as a good or bad ability. The most important thing is how you use it." Crow received the bottle, took a sip, and muttered, "I can't think of any other way to examine it right now." Gu Qingshan's gaze turned to Omaki. "You're both researchers and collectors of infinite worlds knowledge, so I'm guessing that your examination ability wouldn't be any weaker than the public examination organizations of Void City. Or perhaps you're not as good as them." "How could we not be better than them? We might be discreet, but we're the true authorities," Omaki shouted. He looked at the two of them, then took out a metal-covered book from his chest pocket. His expression turned serious as he spoke in a low voice. "In consideration of how you saved me, I'm willing to spend my own research points to activate this Grand Library Search General Outline. Is this book very valuable?" Gu Qingshan asked. Omaki replied, "The Void Grand Library Search General Outline is the Void Library's peerless treasure of knowledge, a collection of all known top-notch knowledge. Only high-ranking members of the Void Library have the chance to use it, and it's rarely used on outsiders, because we ourselves have countless problems waiting to be researched. Thank you. If you can really find out about my ability, I'll be eternally grateful. If you ever need to kill someone in the future, please come find me directly. Even if it's your curator, I'll bring his head here for you, Crow said with a serious expression. Omaki nodded, then appeared excited. Your ability must be very unique, otherwise it would have been discovered long ago. This is an extremely rare case, and my research points are only just enough to activate a high-level search. How about I conduct a thorough research on it? Perhaps I might be able to make some shocking academic discoveries. A thorough research? Crow asked. Indeed, I might need samples of your blood, hair, urine, and other liquids for further research. Omaki rubbed his hands and couldn't wait any longer. Crow, Gu Qing Shan, Crow shrugged. Due to your passion for research, I've decided to retract my intention of helping you kill someone. Gu Qing Shan patted Crow's shoulder. Come, it's such a good chance we can all rest assured after we've investigated it thoroughly, Crow nodded. Put your hand on the book. I'm going to initiate a search. First, we need to find out what kind of method can be used to manifest your abilities form, Omaki said. What's a manifestation? Gu Qingshan asked. It's a characteristic that we can recognize, Omaki replied. Crow then put his hand on the metal-covered book. Omaki held the bottom of the book in his hand and quickly read. Target: Avian race, Hitman, Crow, Researcher Omaki, expend all points to activate a high-level search to find a way to manifest the manifestation of this target's ability. The book glowed. Bam! A dull thud. Both Omaki and Crow's hands were knocked away at the same time. The metal-covered book opened, flipped through the pages until 3 pages flew out and hovered in the air. Omaki glanced at the 3 pages and dejectedly said, Difficult. 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 Ha, fine. Seems like there really isn't any way to find out your ability. Why not? Aren't there 3 ways here? Crow unwillingly pointed at the 3 pages in front of him. Omaki smiled bitterly, then replied, No one can grasp these 3 methods. Crow froze, then fell silent. Gu Qingshan looked at Crow's dejected expression, then at the 3 pages, only to see that they were filled with words that he didn't recognize. This was most likely a unique language within the Void Library that only their own people could understand. What are the 3 methods? Gu Qingshan asked. Omaki sighed, then replied, It's fine to tell you because none of these methods can be implemented. The first method, the Angel of Condemnation of the Inner Plane, has the ultimate card examination method, able to manifest a person's ability on the card UI to examine them. The second method, the 4 pillar gods of the void can use their personal artifacts to obtain the ability of living beings, but the specific method is unknown. The third method, the Eternal Abyss ally can use the Abyss Covenant item to request the will of the Abyss to descend and help examine this ability. The inner plane has already been destroyed, the 4 pillar gods of the void are nowhere to be found, and the Eternal Abyss has never had an ally, so none of these 3 methods can be implemented. Following Omaki's explanation, Crow became more and more dejected. Gu Qingshan was stunned. Wait a minute. These 3 methods, I think I can do any of them. But the Eternal Abyss is currently at war with the Wraith Realm, so trying to communicate with it right now isn't a good idea. The identity of the 4 pillar gods of the void should be kept a secret by the awaitings of the Order side, so it's best not to expose it. Then there's only. Gu Qingshan pulled up his card UI. Following his thought regarding the ability examination, a line of text quickly appeared on the UI. Frowny-faced cherub of condemnation, would you like to examine a living being's ability? I need to, Gu Qingshan replied. Chapter 1393. Gu Qingshan stared closely at the card UI and quickly understood how to detect the abilities of living beings. But what should I do now? Actually, I feel like your Void Library doesn't know much about evil creatures, Gu Qingshan commented. Omaki didn't agree with that and immediately replied, Evil creatures always lie, and they like to lead people to fall. We certainly don't know much about such a race. But comparatively, No one knows more about evil creatures than us Void Library, not even the Secret Admissions Association. What is the Secret Admissions Association? That name doesn't seem to be on the list of organizations in Void City, Gu Qing-shan commented. Ah, it's a notorious underground organization that specializes in studying the power of the body. Every one of them is an expert in anatomy, Crow chimed in. Gu Qing-shan replied. All right then, regardless of how many secrets the Void Library knows about evil creatures, I bet you don't know that us sphere fiends sometimes have abilities that others don't understand. What are you trying to say? Omaki asked. I'm trying to say, we evil creatures also have a few methods of detection, but we rarely use them. Saying so, Gu Qing-shan put her hand on Crow's back and sincerely said, I need you to focus your attention and recall every time you made a prophecy. Crow hesitantly asked, Can I really do that? Omaki also hesitantly asked, Is this your individual ability, or a common ability of all fear fiends? Let's try it first, Gu Qing-shan replied. Crow closed his eyes and began to recall every time his prophecy succeeded. Gu Qing-shan kept her hand on his back and glanced at the card UI. A few moments later, a few lines of text appeared on the card UI. Frowny face detected super rare prophecy type ability. Tombstone. Only those who are extremely sensitive to misfortune would have a 1 in 10 million chance of awakening this ability. The Tombstone. If you foresee a certain unfavorable future, it would trigger the effects of fate, turning the future you foresee into reality. Attention. To activate Tombstone, you must first sense the omen of misfortune. Attention. This is an extremely rare unique prophecy ability. With a strong exclusivity, capable of selecting a single misfortune from countless possible scenarios to descend upon reality. Gu Qing-shan read through it a few times. I really have to say this ability is truly a jinx. At this point, Crow anxiously looked at Gu Qing-shan and asked, How is it? Did your evil creature's detection ability discover anything? Gu Qing-shan looked at him and stayed silent. How I should say this, Crow is a good person, but I'm not a bad person. If I help Crow, Gu glanced through the card UI again. It had a strong exclusivity, choosing a misfortune to descend upon reality. For some reason, Gu Qing-shan suddenly recalled a time when Xie Dao Ling taught him, Xiao Lu, and Xiao about the divination technique. Among the 6 arts, divination is number 1 because it specializes in calculating fortune and misfortune, Xie Dao Ling explained. Then, is misfortune a fixed fate? Su asked. That's not true. Xiao, remember, there is no door to good or bad luck. Only people can summon it themselves. The knowledge in this is very deep, ordinary people can't even touch the edge. Xiao Lu said proudly. Xiao Lu is right. In truth, sometimes bad luck is the origin of good luck, and good luck often contains bad luck as well. As the saying goes, only man can summon himself, which means that the most important factor between good and bad luck is the actions of a person. A person's good and evil thoughts, morals, and ability can all determine the direction of good or bad luck, Xie Dao Ling casually explained. Gu Qing-shan quickly gathered his thoughts and had an idea. He suddenly appeared excited and told Crow, I've discovered what exactly your ability is. Great! This is impossible! Crow and Omaki cried out in unison. Gu Qing-shan said, Remember this well, this ability of yours is called Good Luck Avoidance Technique. Good Luck Avoidance Technique. Crow and Omaki both exclaimed in unison again. Yes, Good Luck Avoidance Technique. Its activation condition must be when you sense that some sort of bad luck is about to appear, Gu Qing-shan said. Go on. Crow held his rapier tightly, trying to calm his nerves. Normally, when people sense the arrival of misfortune, the situation is already irreversible. But you can choose a type of misfortune that isn't as severe and turn it into reality, thus excluding the other types of misfortune that are especially dangerous, Gu Qing-shan explained. For example, let's say that 2 people are going to die together in a duel. At this time, if you know what will happen to them, say in advance, they will both be beaten black and blue by each other. After that, they will really be beaten black and blue by the other party, but they won't die together. Crow slowly retracted his gaze, standing there in thought. Gu Qingshan then added fuel to the fire. Have you always been avoiding casualties during missions, so you've never mentioned anything about death? Crow nodded. Gu Qingshan continued. Then, for the past few years, you've always completed any missions perfectly? Crow thought for a bit, then nodded. That's not right, Omaki called out. Before, he didn't know about this ability of his, so he only mentioned relatively dangerous situations when he wasn't aware of it. Gu Qingshan raised her eyebrows, then continued. That's great. From now on, Crow, you can help us reduce the danger of various situations. Crack, crack. The sound of shattering could be heard. The three of them looked up, only to see that quite a few runes were cracking on one of the walls. An intense gust of wind seemed to be howling outside. This gust of wind contained terrifying power, so much so that even the warp tower that was originally isolated from the outside world was about to collapse. This is the misfortune he mentioned before. The entire tower is about to be destroyed, Omaki said in despair. It's fine, I'll do it. Gu Qingshan walked to a corner of the warp tower and took out a set of repair tools from it. To deal with sudden dangers, these tools specifically used to repair warp formations were usually kept inside the warp tower. Gu Qingshan picked up a set of rune carving pens, flew up and hovered next to the wall. He quickly repaired the runes according to the various warp knowledge he had learned before. You know how to do this? Crow was surprised. I've only learned it for a few days, it's just a small trick. Gu Qingshan landed, placed the repair tools next to his feet, and casually explained. Crow suddenly noticed something and said, The warp tower is a very intricate facility. Something happened just now, so it would definitely produce some chaotic fluctuations that would attract those. As he said this, he suddenly realized something. My ability. I'm activating my ability. Remember this well. This ability of yours is called Fortune-Seeking Danger-Avoiding Technique. Everything Gu Qingshan said just now quickly flashed through his mind. In the blink of an eye, Crow's tone changed and said, The weakest plague monsters, they will come to check the situation, that was all. Gu Qingshan and Omaki both looked at him. You activated your ability again? Omaki asked. Yes, this feeling is the same as before, but at the very last moment, I changed the strongest plague monster to weakest plague monster, Crow admitted. The three of them went silent. Let's wait and see, we'll know the result soon enough, Gu Qingshan muttered. He turned to the card UI again, focusing on a certain line of text. Frowny face attention. This is an extremely rare unique prophecy ability with a strong exclusivity, capable of selecting a single misfortune from countless possible situations to descend upon reality, a strong exclusivity. I hope this is as I think it is. Time ticked by. The howling wind outside slowly weakened until it became silent. Following that, a series of small noises resounded. Tap, 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 tap. Someone was slowly approaching the teleportation tower. Gu Qingshan released her inner sight to check. It was a few man-eater fiends with incomplete bodies. They were indeed the weakest monsters within the plague apocalypse. Success. Gu Qingshan turned to Crow and smiled. I can see that the ones coming are indeed the weakest apocalypse monsters. Crow sensed it. Omaki also sensed it. Unbelievable to be able to determine the level of misfortune. Omaki muttered. Crow drew the rapier at his waist and lightly swung it through the teleportation tower. The sound of footsteps outside instantly disappeared. Flames appeared out of nowhere, burning the few man-eater fiends into ashes. Fortune-seeking danger-avoiding technique? Crow swung his rapier, then suddenly chuckled inside. So I've always had such a powerful fate-type prophecy ability. If I could detect it a bit earlier, I wouldn't have to be so depressed every day. His entire being was in high spirits, looking like a sharp unsheathed blade. Gu Qingshan raised her thumb and agreed. Indeed, you are the one in a million crow of prophecy. Chapter 1394. The night slowly passed. The three of them were resting inside the teleport tower. Hey, Dragon King of Atrocity Jail, how did you manage to determine his abilities? Omaki asked. That's a secret of our evil race, Gu Qing-shan replied. The secret of the evil race. Omaki muttered in disbelief. Indeed, and only the strongest of the fear fiends know this secret, so I'm sorry, but I can't tell you, Gu Qing-shan replied. Omaki looked at Gu Qing-shan in shock. A fear fiend actually has such an ability? Seems like the Grand Library's research on evil creatures is still far from enough. Gu Qing-shan didn't say anything else and took out another pot to prepare some ingredients. It was now morning. Breakfast is one of the three most important things of the day, as it's related to my mood and energy for the entire morning, he muttered to himself. What are the other two most important things of the day? Omaki asked. I'm guessing it's lunch and dinner, Crow replied. No, it's waiting for reinforcements and preparing to enter battle, Gu Qing-shan replied. Following that, Gu Qing-shan personally made another table full of dishes. The three of them had a good meal. After the meal, this damned plague apocalypse. Speaking of which, if I'm stuck here any longer, I'm going to get fat, Crow rubbed his stomach. After learning about his new ability, the shadow in his mind had been swept away, and his appetite had returned. Although he already had it. Can't you just eat a bit less? In the end, it's still a matter of self-control, Omaki teased him. He leaned against the wall, rubbing his stomach like everyone else. Speaking of which, around noon, Void City's army should arrive, right? Gu Qing-shan asked. From the timing, it should be, Crow replied. Crack, crack, crack. A clear cracking sound resounded from the ceiling of the teleport tower. Even with the most powerful spatial techniques of the Void, the overlapping worlds outside were still invading this place. There was a limit to how long the transmission tower could last. Fortunately, Gu Qing-shan had learned many spatial spells, so she was able to repair the teleportation tower and greatly extend its lifespan. Gu Qing-shan took out the spatial rune inscription pen, smeared the spare rune materials on it, and flew up. On the ceiling, he carefully and cautiously outlined new runes. Moments later, the repairs were completed. Gu Qing-shan heaved a sigh of relief and looked at the toolkit that came with the transport tower. There were still about half of the repair materials left. Hopefully, they would be able to hold on until the army arrived. Suddenly, a slight sound came from below. Gu Qing-shan looked down, only to see that Omaki had crashed into the wall and collapsed to the ground, while Crow stood on the other side with a confused expression. Gu Qing-shan landed and asked, "What happened?" Crow shrugged. "Just now, he ran into the wall by himself. I don't even know what happened to him." The two of them turned to Omaki. Omaki was also a professionist, so he didn't feel any pain from being hit, but he sat on the ground with his eyes wide open without moving. "Just now, a monster suddenly appeared in front of me. I was startled, so..." Before he could finish, Gu Qing-shan and Crow both understood. "You mean, a monster infiltrated this tower?" Crow unsheathed the rapier at his waist and wielded it. Gu Qing-shan also drew her twin swords, releasing her inner sight to scan the entire teleportation tower. The two of them prepared themselves for battle. 1 breath, 2 breath, 3 breath. "Did you find anything?" Crow asked in a low voice. "I didn't sense any monster," Gu Qing-shan replied. Their gazes fell onto Omaki. "I'm not lying," Omaki hurriedly said. "I really saw a monster that had gone extinct long ago." Gu Qing-shan retracted her gaze and observed the spatial runes inside the teleportation tower. Not a single one was damaged. How strange. Could it be that a monster was able to bypass the effects of so many spatial techniques and directly infiltrate this place? He focused his mind. Sword-infused wind rose. Aside from where Crow and Omaki were standing, the entire area was swept through by the sword-infused wind. Nothing. Gu Qingshan slowly became cautious. Omaki didn't seem to be lying, not to mention, he wouldn't have told such a lie anyway. I think you're hallucinating, Crow told Omaki, then his expression changed. It couldn't be, don't say it, Gu Qingshan shouted. He probably wasn't infected by the plague apocalypse, otherwise you and I would have been infected as well. All of a sudden, their ID cards vibrated at once. Warning! Unknown spatial storm detected in the Gloom Galaxy. The army has already lost 720 scouts. The storm has been proven to possess unique destructive properties. During the storm, all teleportation techniques cannot be used. The army's movements will be suspended. Survivors, please stay in hiding and wait for a chance. The vibrations from their ID cards disappeared and returned to silence. They're not coming? Gu Qingshan asked in a low voice. Crow and Omaki nodded. The three of them didn't say anything, feeling a bit dejected. The outside world was a rampaging apocalypse, a lost civilization, and extinct monsters, while they were trapped inside a teleportation tower without being able to move. This wasn't a good feeling at all. While Gu Qingshan was thinking about this, Crow suddenly uttered a loud cry. Ah! Crow abruptly dodged to the side, then swung his sword forward. There was nothing in front of him, but his attack was both swift and fierce, bringing with it layers of intense flames. Clang! With the intense sound of weapons clashing, the earth sword stopped the rapier. Crow's expression returned to normal, then looked around. Ah? Where are the plagues from just now? Gu Qingshan replied in a low voice. I didn't see any plagues, but if I hadn't blocked that attack, the teleportation tower would have been destroyed by your sword. Crow looked at Gu Qingshan, then at the two swords that were still clashing, then slowly understood. Something seems a bit strange. Omaki, did you see 5 plagues just now? Crow asked. No, I was deep within a frozen wasteland and saw a monster that was around 10 stories tall, Omaki replied. Crow, what about you? Gu Qingshan asked. I was in a burning city, on a street full of corpses, Crow replied. That's strange. The two of them saw completely different scenes. I got it! Omaki suddenly shouted. He took out an hourglass and placed it on the ground. Following that, he took out 2 hourglasses, 2 clocks, as well as a small water wheel. Look! Omaki pointed at these items. As Gu Qingshan looked closely, she saw that the sand was falling at different speeds within each of the 3 hourglasses. Of the 2 clocks, one was pointing at 7:15 a.m., while the other was pointing at 12:31 a.m. As for the water wheel, the speed of the water was sometimes fast, sometimes slow. Time. There's an issue with time. Omaki excitedly exclaimed. Gu Qingshan thought for a bit, then asked, Is it related to the spatial storm? Omaki replied, Yes. At least 3 different spacetime have infiltrated this tower. Why? Before Gu Qingshan could finish his words, he felt his surroundings changing. He found himself standing in complete darkness. There were stars in the sky. Under the shroud of night, several men wearing simple leather armor and wielding spears were cautiously staring at him. Divine Spirit's protection! They shouted in unison. A faint white glow appeared from their bodies and attached to their spears. Gu Qingshan raised his sword, then put it down again. Don't attack, I'm on your side, he shouted. On your side? The other side also shouted. You've already mutated to this state, you must have been infected by the plague. Gu Qingshan was surprised and looked down at himself. Fiend. I'm a fear fiend. Although these fiends look like humans, they have horns on their heads and a ferocious expression. From a human's point of view, isn't this a mutation? Go, kill this infected! The group of people loudly shouted. Gu Qingshan couldn't help but retract all of his spirit energy and quickly retreat. I can't attack. While fleeing, Gu Qingshan suddenly ran into the void of space behind him. Bam! A dull sound. That void of space was like a sturdy wall, supported by powerful defensive and isolation spells. Instantly, everything around him disappeared. Gu Qingshan found himself back inside the tower. Sure enough, it was the wall of the tower behind him. What did you see? Omaki couldn't help but ask. It's different from the rest of you, it was a village. They thought I was infected by the plague apocalypse, Gu Qingshan said. I'm glad I didn't attack just now. I should have been inside the overlapping space just now, so if I attacked, I would have damaged the tower. That would have been the end. Gu Qingshan's thoughts quickly turned and asked. Omaki, the overlapping space has already spread into this tower, how should we deal with it now? Omaki took out a small intricate instrument and shook his head while looking at it. I can only calculate the extent of the overlapping space, how could I answer such a profound question? Crow immediately said. No, we need to leave right now. Gu Qingshan shook her head. We can't, as soon as we return, we'll be treated as infected by the plague apocalypse and executed on the spot. The three of them fell silent. What do we do now? All of a sudden, they felt an indescribable pulling force. This power formed a connection with something in their bodies. The three of them took out their ID cards at the same time, only to see cracks appearing on their ID card. Strange, why can't the ID cards withstand the overlapping space? Crow asked. It's no longer a spatial overlap. Omaki appeared fearful and showed the intricate instrument in his hand to Gu Qingshan and Crow. Several lines of text were flickering madly on it. Frowny face. Attention. The worlds are currently in a state of fusion. Attention. The worlds are currently in a state of destruction. Fusion. Destruction. The three of them looked down at the ID cards in their hand. The cracks on the ID cards were increasing. Gu Qingshan sighed and muttered, We're no longer in any of the worlds within the space vortex, so the ID cards believe that we're dead. That's impossible. As long as we're in any of the worlds within the space vortex, the ID cards wouldn't be isolated, Omaki loudly shouted. Gu Qingshan didn't say anything. Indeed, that's indeed the case. But those worlds just now all originated from a powerful parallel world. And not just one. All of a sudden, the three ID cards vibrated at the same time. A cold and solemn voice resounded. Frowny face. The spatial storm is expanding within the space vortex. Through 36 different methods of investigation, it has been confirmed that the entire Gloom Galaxy has been destroyed and no one survived. Hearing this, Omaki hurriedly shouted, How could no one survive? We're still alive. He tapped the ID card to turn on the communication function, only to find that it was slowly breaking apart. The voice from the ID card remained unmoved and continued. Frowny face. Order. Begin lockdown of this star region, forbidding entry of all personnel. All world armies are to be dismissed. Return to your respective worlds. Overseers, prepare to take over and set up the barrier of this star region. From this moment onwards, this star region's apocalypse has been assessed as lifeless. Commander Crack. As soon as he said that, the three people's identity nameplates completely shattered. World's Apocalypse Online. World's Apocalypse Online. Chapter 1395. The Wraith Realm. From the boundless darkness, a withered hand reached out and formed a hand seal. Following that, another jet-black hand reached out and formed a hand seal. Fate, Hex, Death's End, Shadow. Immortal Craft, Miraculous Reflection. Two voices shouted at the same time. The void of space silently opened. A boundless darkness appeared in front of the wraiths. A silhouette of a soul flew out, headed straight into the darkness, and landed in front of a wraith statue. It was White Eagle Gong Wu's soul light. Following that, a cold voice resounded from the statue. What is the name of our spy in the Hunter Guild? Someone immediately answered. White Eagle Gong Wu, a titled hunter. Very well, I had just sent him to probe that evil creature, and he died. Come, let me see if the one who killed him was that evil creature, or something else. The two voices from before replied in unison. Yes, Sir Wraith Lord. Layers upon layers of light manifested into a scene. This was the final scene that White Eagle Gong Wu saw before his death. Die! Someone shouted. The spear pierced through his chest, followed by the bombardment of a spell. An armored warrior and a caster. White Eagle Gong Wu died under their combined attack. One of his aides said, "Sir Wraithlord, it seems White Eagle Gong Wu died under the attack of that apocalypse." This was very clear. But the Wraith Lord remained silent for a bit, then said, "I still feel like something isn't quite right. Let me perform the space-time reversal technique to revive this White Eagle Gong Wu and ask him about it," someone advised. "Sir Wraithlord, his soul has completely lost its sentience, clearly the result of being corrupted by those apocalypses. If you wish to revive him, you will have to spend a lot of effort." "It is fine. The truth is more important." Saying so, the statue raised its hands, about to form a hand seal. At this point, a flame talisman flew from afar and landed in front of the statue. The statue hesitated a bit, then tapped the flame talisman. A respectful voice resounded from the flame talisman. "Sir Wraithlord, according to the latest information, the apocalypse of the Gloom Galaxy has been confirmed to be unlivable or commander class. All professionists who went to that galaxy have died." All was quiet. The statue slowly lowered its hands. "So they're all dead? Then there is no need for me to waste my effort." The next second, White Eagle Gong Wu's soul suddenly let out a blood-curdling scream as it was directly sucked into the statue's mouth. He didn't even get any useful information before he was killed. "This is your punishment." The other side. Dim Star Zone. Transport Tower. The three identity nameplates were completely shattered. Gu Qing-shan, Crow, and Omaki were all stunned. Originally, he only needed to wait for rescue, but now he was completely abandoned. Compared to these, there was another matter that was more important. "Omaki, those worlds are all fusing, right?" Crow asked. Omaki looked at the precise instrument in his hand and said in confusion, "Yes, they are indeed fusing, but why are they destroying each other?" Gu Qing-shan sighed and explained. "During the fusion process, the Plague Apocalypse world is eroding the extinct monster world and the lost civilization world, so you will see the number of destruction constantly rising." Spatial fluctuations suddenly appeared again. The ground clearly did not move, but the three of them felt a tremor. A line of glowing text suddenly appeared on the war god UI. Frowny face. "A unique situation has occurred. You are about to be sucked into a new world. You do not belong to any of the three unique worlds, so during the fusion process, you will be abandoned by the laws. You will be thrown directly into the center of the plague apocalypse, to be killed by the endless plague ghosts." "Can't we talk about it?" Gu Qing-shan asked. The war god UI replied. The parallel worlds had already been destroyed once, only the most powerful worlds managed to survive. After going through the fusion process, they would no longer trust anyone. The only way to remedy this is for you to release your own soul points and continuously provide it to the fused world, using this as a compensation mechanism to receive the recognition of the laws of the world. "This is the only way for you to survive," Gu Qing-shan silently asked. "What do I need to do?" The war god UI replied. "Continuously provide origin power of the soul to the new world. This way, the laws of the new world will recognize you as a friendly invader." "How much?" "For the three of you, 300 soul points per second. Continue until the laws of the world have confirmed that you are no longer a threat to the world. Please begin this task immediately, otherwise, the laws of the world will deal with you." Gu Qing-shan asked. "What do I need to do?" "You don't need to do anything, I will directly deduct it, but a unique soul points fluctuation will appear on your body for about 3 minutes. Please make sure to explain this to your companions." The war god UI replied. "Got it," Gu Qing-shan replied. He turned to Crow and Omaki and spoke with a serious expression. "Listen well, I'm going to unleash a technique that will guarantee that we won't be directly killed by those worlds. This technique consumes a lot of soul points, so I hope that when you run into some monsters later on, you won't kill them and leave them to me. I need their soul points to replenish myself." Following his explanation, The war god UI began to work. Frowny face. Attention, from this moment onwards, the system will begin deducting your soul points to allow the fused new world's laws to recognize your identities. A small number popped up on the left side of the UI. Soul points contributed to the laws of the world. Plus 300 plus 300 plus 300. Gu Qing Shan silently calculated. 300 soul points per second. That would cost 1,080,000 soul points per hour. Roughly 26 million soul points per day. That's too expensive. But this is the only way to survive. Gu Qing Shan glanced at his remaining soul points. The soul points he got from eating the salted fish had been used up, leaving him with only 300 million soul points left. I need to earn the recognition of the laws of the world as soon as possible. As soon as he began to expend soul points, a unique fluctuation appeared around his body. This fluctuation was like an invisible wave that enveloped the other two people as well. Omaki sensed it, then spoke with a complicated expression. This is the power of the origin of the soul. Fiend, you actually know how to use an origin technique. Crow muttered. I can sense some sort of dangerous misfortune leaving us. Seems like your technique was indeed effective. The three of them stood still. Various scenes began to appear around them. Sometimes it was a group of people fighting, other times it was a monster or a plague. The scenes were constantly changing, seemingly indicating that the fusion was progressing step by step. All of a sudden, a line of glowing text appeared on the war god UI. Frowny face. The numerous laws of the world have recognized your gift. You have been accepted into the new world. Following this, the laws of the world will perform a few adjustments on you to facilitate your assimilation into the new world. First adjuster. Crow, what do you mean by adjustments? Gu Qing Shan silently asked. A certain type of optimization and transformation. Don't worry, it won't endanger your life. The war god UI replied. A second later, Crow suddenly shouted in shock. Hey, what's going on with me? Gu Qing Shan and Omaki both turned to Crow. Crow's originally bewitchingly beautiful body slowly shrunk a bit, then turned into a voluptuous figure that appeared even more alluring. Why did I turn into a woman? Crow was on the verge of breaking down. Omaki was completely stunned. Truly, she's so beautiful. She's even more beautiful than the countless worlds past beauties that Omaki had collected through his library. Gu Qing Shan's expression changed. The shaking around them had completely stopped. The supernatural phenomena had also completely disappeared. The teleportation tower was completely undamaged. Everything had returned to normal. Could it be? Gu Qing Shan turned to Omaki. It was now that Omaki reluctantly turned his gaze away from Crow and looked down at the intricate instrument in his hand. No, this is a necessary part of the fusion process. We've only temporarily returned to our original world, only a few minutes more. All three of their expressions changed at the same time. A young boy had suddenly appeared inside the teleportation tower. He was a boy around 5 years old. His entire body was covered in mystical runes, only his head was peeking out, curiously looking at the three of them. A long purple chain was attached to the boy's back. Not only was it holding him in place, but it was also giving off a purple glow that enveloped him. Ah, he's one of us, Gu Qing Shan hurriedly said. This was Buttercup's son, who would have thought that he would appear here. The boy pulled the chain behind him, then turned around and shouted, Mom, he's not dead. Saying so, he then looked at Gu Qing Shan and said, Uncle, so you're not dead. My mom was so worried, mobilizing so many ominous demons to contribute their power, and even wanted me to use my own ability to take a look. Hearing that, Gu Qing Shan was both touched and worried. Hurry, this place is about to fuse into another world, you can't get dragged into it. Also, tell your mom not to worry, I'll be fine on my side, he quickly told her. The boy replied, Truthfully, I'm currently in another isolated space, I can't save you either. He pulled the chain behind him again, loudly shouting, "Mom, this place is very dangerous. He told me to return. He should be able to handle it." A short moment later, the boy seemed to have received some sort of information and nodded to Gu Qingshan. "Then let's do it this way. If you're so lucky, continue to take care of yourself." He turned around to leave. "Wait!" Crow suddenly walked up. He also knew that time was limited, so he quickly said, "Your ominous demon tower has a male-female transformation technique. Can you teach it to me? I'm willing to pay any price. I need this ability." The boy glanced at him, then froze. This woman, she's too beautiful, enough to charm all living beings. Gu Qingshan was also stunned. However, since ominous demons could give birth to their own children, compared to that, a male-female transformation technique wasn't anything strange. "You want to learn the male-female transformation technique from me?" the boy asked. Yes, Crow's beautiful eyes showed a look of desire. "You're willing to pay any price?" the boy asked again. Yes, Crow lightly pursed his lips. The boy went silent briefly, then suddenly pulled the chain again, shouting, "Mom, a woman is flirting with me!" In a split second, the chain dragged the child and disappeared into the void at lightning speed. Chapter 1396. A female voice hurriedly called out, "Wait!" As soon as this word left his mouth, the child was pulled into the void of space by the metal chain and vanished without a trace. Crow froze in place. "Bastard! Why did you become like this?" He abruptly exploded. But this voice was clear and bright with a hint of charm, making one's heart itch. One couldn't feel the anger in it at all. Gu Qingshan hurriedly consoled him. "Calm down, this is only a temporary modification of us by the laws of this world. Perhaps when we leave this world and return to our original one, the changes to our bodies will disappear." "No! This Great One doesn't believe it. This Great One is going to risk his life against this new world." "Humph!" Crow angrily declared. Gu Qingshan froze. "Go ahead and risk your life. What are you snorting for? You're actually starting to get into character." Crow drew the rapier at his waist and lightly swung it a few times. "Fortunately, I still have my powers," he sighed in relief. As Gu Qingshan was about to say something, lines of glowing text appeared from the void of space. "Frowny face, you've continuously contributed origin power of the soul, receiving the praise of the new world. Following this, the laws of this world will continue to modify you to facilitate your assimilation into the new world." The second modifier. Omaki. After reading through these lines of text, Gu Qingshan turned to Omaki. Compared to Crow, Omaki's change was even more dramatic. With a resounding poof, white fog filled the area where Omaki stood. After all the mist dissipated, a khaki-colored plush duck doll appeared on the ground. "No!" The duck plushie covered its face with its wings and cried out in despair. "Why did I become a doll?" Crow glanced at the duck on the ground, then at his own body, then slowly shut his mouth. "Rather than becoming a duck plushie, I might as well become a woman. If I become a woman, I'm still considered a human." "Ahaha, how cute, Omaki!" She squatted down and gloated. Gu Qingshan's expression was a bit solemn as she said, "I'm guessing that you have too much knowledge, and this knowledge will greatly affect the fate of the new world. So, in order to eliminate this possibility, the laws of the world turned you into a duck plushie. This way you can't do many things." The duck was stunned for a while. Suddenly, it clenched one of its wings into a fist and punched the other. It said angrily, "You're right. It's because I'm too knowledgeable. They're afraid that I'll change the world." It howled miserably. The truth is always in the hands of a minority, and the fate of a minority is always so tortuous and difficult. "Fate, are you testing me?" Crow and Gu Qingshan exchanged glances. "That's a line from an opera." Crow signaled Gu Qingshan with his eyes and sent his voice. Gu Qingshan was speechless. Suddenly, the woman and the duck doll turned to look at him. "Why haven't you changed?" they said in unison. Without waiting for Gu Qingshan to reply, New lines of glowing text appeared in the void of space. Frowny face, the fusion of the new world is about to be completed. As you have continuously contributed your soul origin power to the new world spirit is about to be born and will appear in front of you to converse with you. Please deal with it carefully. 3. It's here. Gu Qingshan suddenly felt the woman and the duck in front of her, as well as the entire teleportation tower, disappear. The world became dark. All of a sudden, from the darkness, a vast galaxy of stars manifested. These stars filled the sky, giving off a deep blue glow that illuminated Gu Qingshan's body. A notification suddenly popped up on the war god UI. Frowny face, the other party is currently sensing your title recognized by the laws of the infinite world. You may choose to hide your title or let it see you. Gu Qingshan immediately replied. There's no need to hide it, just let it see you. Understanding each other is the first step to resolving any misunderstandings. Understood. A few moments later, the blue glow slowly turned gentle. A grand and solemn voice resounded from deep within the galaxy of stars. Adept Dragon Slayer, heir of the 1,000 dragons ancestor, Huang Quan Devil King, wielder of heaven and earth, ally of the eternal abyss, master of the Samsara great mountain, one blessed by the worlds of the past, heir of ethereal, cherub of condemnation of the inner plane. We welcome your arrival, but we cannot trust you. Why can't you trust me? And who are you? Gu Qingshan asked. Countless stars descended from above like a sea of stars, surrounding Gu Qingshan. Among the parallel worlds, the greatest and most prosperous world is called the Saint Spirit world. This is our home, and we are its true deities. Countless years ago, the Wraith realm came into contact with us, used 70 million years to gain our trust, then another 1,500 years to scheme and push us into destruction. Gu Qingshan asked. Why did they do that? Because our world is too powerful, and only our destruction would create a chain of fate corrosion that would destroy the surrounding worlds, then the entire parallel world. The Wraiths needed this terrifying power to help them achieve a certain goal. Gu Qingshan finally understood. He sighed deeply. The Wraith realm spent so much effort just to deal with the Eternal Abyss. The Eternal Abyss was indeed defeated, but at the very last moment it awakened. An awakened Eternal Abyss isn't something the Wraiths could deal with. If that's the case, wouldn't their scheme be nothing more than a joke? Wait a minute. If the Wraith realm had spent so much effort and planned for so many years, wouldn't they have calculated this? Gu Qingshan felt a chill in his heart. No. They must have calculated this. While he was thinking, the voice resounded again from within the boundless starlight. Frowny face, from the title you've obtained, everything you've done has nothing to do with the Wraith realm. They are my enemies, Gu Qingshan replied. We had also come to the same conclusion, but after experiencing the Wraith realm's betrayal and destruction, we can no longer easily trust anyone. You must understand this. I understand, Gu Qingshan replied. No, you don't, but you will soon understand. Gu Qingshan was a bit surprised. The voice continued. At the very last moment of the world's destruction, we discovered our only chance. What chance? By fusing with the extinct monster world and the plague apocalypse world, we had essentially fused 3 parallel worlds together. This fusion would allow the 3 dying parallel worlds to unleash their final burst of power. By borrowing this power, as well as the lives of us deities, we would be able to achieve one thing. By reversing the flow of space-time, we would return to the moment when the Saint Spirit world was at its peak. Everything would be redone. The people of the Wraith realm, they would once again appear in history, but this time, it wouldn't just be them. Following the fusion of the worlds, the plague and monsters would also slowly descend. Wait a minute. Gu Qingshan spoke in a low voice. You've paid with your lives, so you're already dying? We will no longer be deities. We will turn into the many laws of this world, constantly paying attention to everything that happens in this world. Stranger, help our world. If you can do it, we will reward you handsomely. Perhaps after everything is over, we will stand on your side and seek revenge on the Wraith realm with you. Gu Qingshan muses. The Wraith Realm's plan is progressing at a steady pace. If we waste too much time, by the time we regain our senses, the Wraith Realm would have already become even more powerful. Don't worry, through the fusion of 3 parallel worlds, the new world's flow of time will be different from your world. The voice slowly faded. All the starlight returned to the sky and returned to silence. A line of glowing text quickly appeared in front of Gu Qingshan's eyes. Frowny face. The world's new consciousness has been born. Time has begun to reverse. Everything that happened in history will repeat itself, but the difference is that aside from the wraiths, there will also be extinct monsters and the plague apocalypse gradually descending. The world's new consciousness is currently adjusting you to allow you to fully assimilate into the new world. The third adjustment, Gu Qingshan had noticed some changes. His fear fiend form was slowly dissipating and returning to his human form. He had returned to his original appearance. Compared to an evil creature, a human form was naturally more suitable to survive in the saint spirit world. And that wasn't the end. Gu Qingshan slowly became shorter. His body also became a bit thinner, his face appeared a bit immature. The crow and duck both looked at him. Fiend, you turned into a human teenager, and a handsome one at that. How unfair, the yellow duck Omaki angrily said. Gu Qingshan touched his face. I've always looked like this, what's the point of blaming me? The woman stood on one side and crossed her arms. Looks like you're only 15 years old, how immature. Tisk tisk. Gu Qingshan suddenly noticed something and pulled up his sleeve. A dark blue dot silently appeared on his left wrist. Lines of glowing text appeared on the War God UI frowny face proof of the world. This is the identity granted to you by the world's consciousness. It records your actions and manipulates the world's power for your use. Please obtain the initial pattern to prove your stand. If you succeed, the world will slowly accept you. Under Gu Qingshan's gaze, the dark blue dot slowly turned into the pattern of a sword about the size of a finger. Ah, why do you have a tattoo? Crow asked. Gu Qingshan touched the sword pattern. This is most likely the key to our survival, he cautiously said. Chapter 1397. Arg. 3 voices of different heights resounded in the silent night sky. Boom! A meteor landed outside the border town of Ramon at the border of the duchy. A young man, a woman, and a duck plushie appeared in the crater. Cough cough cough. Falling from so high up, it really hurts a lot, the duck plushie commented. Researchers like you always lack exercise, the woman commented. She stood up, drew the rapier at her waist, and observed her surroundings. A young male voice resounded. I don't agree with that, research shouldn't interfere with physical training. Gu Qingshan. The young man also drew his rapier and stood side by side with the woman. A mass of blue starlight suddenly appeared in front of the 3 of them. Countless voices resounded from within the blue starlight, speaking in unison. We have turned into the world's consciousness, doing our best to help the living beings of this world to triumph against the wraiths, monsters and plagues. Strangers, please help us in this world. We have fixed the 3 worlds' language proficiency techniques for you, as well as the corresponding identities. 3 boxes descended from the sky, landing in front of Gu Qingshan's group. The voice continued, however, you will need to accomplish something else in order to properly utilize this identity. You will need to survive first. After that, the blue starlight slowly disappeared. The 3 of them exchanged glances, then looked at the boxes in front of them. Then, these boxes are the identities that the worlds have prepared for us? Omaki asked. Survive. Crow chuckled, then casually swung his rapier. Isn't that looking down on us a bit too much? Omaki agreed. That's right. I'm a researcher of Void City's Grand Library. For someone to question my ability to survive in the wild, that's truly looking down on us. Gu Qingshan didn't say anything and simply looked at the void of space. Lines of glowing text kept appearing. Time. Saint Spirit Year 769. Location. Ramon Town of the UI has sensed the rift of world fusion. Among the 3 fusing worlds, one of them will open the path of fusion. If you can survive, the living beings of this world will recognize your identity. Gu Qingshan thought for a moment and opened the box in front of her. Inside was a will, a document to prove one's identity, a wooden bow and arrows. Gu Qingshan took the document and the will, read it carefully, and said, "There's a new town built by pioneers here. Its owner has passed away. As the descendant of the pioneer leader, according to the rules, I have to arrive at the Viscount's mansion in the prefecture within 10 days to complete the enfeoffment ceremony." Gu Qingshan holds the wooden bow in her hand and weighs it. Crow kicked the box in front of him open, only to see a metal plate, a document, and a small bag inside. "Why are my things different from yours?" He took the iron plate out to take a look, only to see the word Crow engraved on the front and the silhouette of a woman on the back. The document recorded her identity as a female knight, and the small pouch contained a bag of coins. "Knight? Not bad." Crow put the coin away. "Pioneers, it seems like you and Omaki are my guards, and we're the lowest aristocrats in this world," Gu Qingshan analyzed. "We probably need to climb up a bit faster to take control of this world as soon as possible," Crow clenched his fists and said. "But this world is said to be the most powerful world. We still don't know what kind of social structure it is, so we need to observe it a bit more," Gu Qingshan said. Omaki patted his chest. "Whatever social structure, just leave it to me. I've studied many civilizations, so I'm quite familiar with such matters. I'm also an expert on how to quickly gain authority in any civilization. I have almost 800 civilization strategies and 97 successful practical experiences." Hearing that, Gu Qingshan and Crow both felt a sense of respect. Crow said, "Omaki, quickly take a look at your identity, you might be able to help a lot." Omaki nodded. That's true, it's time to take a look at my identity, I'll use it to make a big deal out of it." The duck plushie jumped up and opened the box in front of him with one of his wings, only to see that there was nothing else inside the box except a single card. The duck picked the card up and looked closely, only to see 2 lines of text written on it. "Frowny face toy. Duck plushie, price 1 copper coin." The duck plushie held the card in his hand and froze for a long time. A cold gust of wind blew past. Looking at the duck plushie's pitiful back, Gu Qingshan encouraged him. "Omaki, the power of knowledge is endless, cheer up." Crow also added, "That's right, the world spirit just now said that we need to survive first. Now is the time for us to be united, because a monster might show up." Silence all around. The young man and the duck plushie both turned to Crow and loudly shouted, "What did you say just now?" Crow froze, then awkwardly replied, "After I turned into a woman, my mind was a bit messed up, so I forgot about the art of avoiding calamity." A second later, the night breeze blew past. A low roar resounded from within the wind. "Oh no, wah!" Gu Qingshan and Crow both drew their swords at the same time, but only managed to parry it. Clang! Clang! The 2 of them were sent flying, kicking up a large amount of dust along the way. A giant wolf with blade-like feathers all over its body appeared where they had been standing. A second later, Gu Qingshan abruptly appeared and stabbed the wolf with her sword. The wolf didn't back down and roared, "Die!" It opened its mouth and spat out a blinding mass of light. Boom! Gu Qingshan and Crow behind him were both sent flying. The 2 of them tumbled in the air, stopping their retreat. "It's not a normal monster, it knows how to fight 2 at once, it's intelligent," Crow commented. "It can talk, most likely a guy from the extinct monster world," Gu Qingshan commented. "It's not very strong, so it can't hurt us, but its attack speed is too fast," Crow commented. "I suspect that this isn't speed, but some sort of ability," Gu Qingshan also commented. The 2 of them quickly conversed, then suddenly went silent. "Oh no, Omaki is..." Gu Qingshan's expression changed. Omaki's strength lies in his knowledge and understanding of the world, but his combat prowess is far inferior compared to Gu Qingshan and Crow. And he's currently a duck plushie. His life is in danger. Gu Qingshan and Crow both turned to where Omaki was, only to see the duck plushie leaning against the box, completely motionless. It was holding a card in its mouth. Toy. Duck plushie price. 1 copper coin. The giant wolf sniffed it, then looked at it carefully and nodded. A laughable dead object, the wolf muttered. It's just a dead object, there's no need to pay attention to it. The wolf turned around to look at Gu Qingshan and Crow. It spoke full of mockery. Come, humans, I can already sense the laughably weak power you carry. You are the weakest type of people in this world, perfect for my food at the very next split second. The wolf's body was abruptly enveloped in icy mist, causing it to temporarily be unable to move. Laughable, you want to trap me like this? The wolf roared. It only needed 1 second to escape from this icy trap. But would people like Gu Qingshan and Crow give it that chance? One sword was burning in flames, while the other was covered in lightning. Both of them descended from above. Boom! Flames and lightning erupted into the sky. The violent wind swept in all directions. A breath's worth of time later, with a thud, the wolf's head fell to the ground. This world's origin power and laws are truly the strongest I've ever seen in my life, Crow commented. Why do you say that? Gu Qingshan asked. Crow pointed at the shallow crater on the ground. When we fought with everything we had, if we were in a world with weaker laws, we would have already caused damage to the world. But in this place, we were able to fight as we pleased without the world being damaged at all. This means that this world is extremely powerful, much more powerful than what we have, Gu Qingshan said. So that's how it is. I heard that this is the most powerful world, combined with the fact that it had fused 2 other worlds. The power of its origin power is probably beyond our imagination. We've already signed a covenant to not destroy the world. This way we can fight without worrying about the world not being able to handle it. Crow put his sword away. Speaking of which, it was fortunate that Omaki managed to set up the trap while it wasn't paying attention, Gu Qingshan commented. The 2 of them turned to Omaki. He quickly ran over, spat on the ground, then kicked the wolf's head with all his might. What do you mean by laughable dead object? Fuck you. Let's see who's the real dead object now. The duck plushie vented his anger. Gu Qingshan, Crow, I suddenly thought of something. With Omaki by our side, we'll be able to execute many tactics, Gu Qingshan muttered. Crow nodded in agreement. Chapter 1398. Gu Qingshan crouched down in front of the wolf's head, pondering. The war god Ui gave me 700 soul points for killing this monster. Although it wasn't much, it proved one thing. This monster wasn't any weaker than me. I wonder how strong this monster would be compared to the extinct monster world. While he was thinking, lines of glowing text appeared in front of his eyes. You have successfully survived and obtained official identities from now on. In this world, what you should do and how you should act is entirely up to you. Gu Qingshan, Crow, and Omaki immediately froze in place. An unfamiliar memory appeared in their minds, causing their brains to become dizzy. The world had inserted a piece of their past into their minds to help them perfectly fit into this world. Gu Qingshan scowled and muttered. I saw the power of the duchy. They were too powerful, as expected of the most powerful world. Crow also endured his headache and smirked. I saw. I once learned a stabbing sword technique, so such a profound sword technique could only be considered normal in their world. The duck plushie didn't change its expression, only coldly saying, Now I know how to make duck plushies and similar toys. A few moments later, after the 3 of them received the memories, Crow asked in confusion. Why are there so many people from the Wraith realm in this world? Omaki was also confused. That's right, this world had previously told us to defeat monsters, apocalypses and wraiths. Why do they have to target the wraiths so specifically? Gu Qingshan thought for a bit, but didn't say anything. The Wraith schemes were too deep. Even now, he still couldn't figure it out. The Wraith's techniques were also too powerful. If I told the truth, it would instead be disadvantageous to Crow and Omaki. Gu Qingshan hugged the duck plushie and stood up, saying, "Don't think about it, let's return to the village first." Crow asked, "Why are we going to the village?" Gu Qingshan replied, "According to the memory arranged by the world spirit, someone from the Viscount's manor has arrived, saying that they're here to receive us and prepare for the conferring ceremony. I also seem to have this memory. Let's go," Crow said. Just as they were about to move, a person suddenly appeared in front of them. It was a man wearing a yiksha mask. Gu Qingshan was startled. "I didn't expect to run into someone from the Wraith realm so soon." This was a small town at the border of a duchy. According to my memories, there aren't any Wraith realm humans stationed in this town. If it wasn't a coincidence, it could only mean that these people were already all over the world, but they usually hid in the dark. The man wearing the demon mask said, "So it's the new mayor. I heard the commotion of the battle just now and was afraid that someone was in danger, so I came to take a look." This town was the land that Gu Qingshan had obtained from his will, and it was the basis for him to be conferred the title of Baron. Gu Qingshan said, "Oh, we found a particularly fierce wolf. It wanted to eat us, so we killed it." "Is that so? Young Mayor is really skilled." The man wearing the devil mask praised and walked to the side of the giant wolf's head to carefully examine it. "Strange. I don't think I've seen this creature before," he asked in surprise. A few moments later, the man took out a communication talisman, muttered a few words, then let the talisman fly away. Gu Qingshan silently stared at the man's back. "No. Now isn't the time. I need to first obtain a certain amount of authority in this world before I can deal with these Wraith." With that in mind, Gu Qingshan said, "Take your time, this thing really is quite rare." He signaled Crow with his eyes, then brought the duck plushie back to the town. Even after they had gone quite a distance away, the man from the Wraith realm was still studying the giant wolf's head. "That's an extinct monster world entity. He wouldn't be able to recognize it no matter how hard he tries," Crow gloated. "Following this, the monsters and plague will slowly erode this world. It's up to this world to see if it can survive," Gu Qingshan said. "If it can't," Crow said, "we'll also die in this world's apocalypse," Omaki said. The three of them said nothing else and flew towards Ramon Town. A few moments later, the three of them stood at the entrance of the town. "This building, why does it look so familiar?" Gu Qingshan was confused. "Even I've never seen such a style of building before. How did you do it?" Omaki was surprised. "What a beautiful building, I've never seen it in any other world either," Crow followed up. As far as the eye could see, every single building had a pure white wall, but the roofs were either a deep blue or black, forming a tall, pointed tower. However, the windows were made of colorful glass, all of which were painted with various beautiful sceneries and people, giving them a solemn and dignified appearance, as well as a mysterious sense of beauty. Gu Qingshan had a lot of questions in his mind. "I really think I've seen a similar building before at... Damn it, I've clearly been to this place before, why can't I remember? Where did you see this kind of building before?" Omaki couldn't wait to ask. "I can't remember," Gu Qingshan said worriedly. "How could a professionist like you not remember? Were you in a dream?" Omaki asked. "In a dream?" Gu Qingshan abruptly stopped, completely stunned. "That's right. In the secret passage of the Dusty World, the four deities of the past told me about the inner plane. At the time, I once saw the deities of the inner plane in an illusion." "That's right. This is the style of the deities of the inner plane. This isn't right at all. The inner plane is the only world among the many parallel worlds, one that only exists within the space vortex. Why would there be a building similar to the inner plane here?" Gu Qingshan was confused. "We're here," Crow spoke up. As Gu Qingshan regained her senses, she found that Crow and herself were standing in front of the largest building in town. Omaki was being carried by Crow as a duck plushie. "I'm a girl now, so it's normal for girls to carry plushies." Two knights in standard armor were standing in front of the building. Gu Qing-shan noticed that the emblem on their armor was from the Viscount's manor. "Young Master Road," one of the knights said, "the Viscount's envoy is waiting for you." "Ah, got it," Gu Qing-shan replied. He brought Crow with him into the building. A man in black formal attire stood in the middle of the building with his back towards Gu Qing-shan. "Young Master Road has returned?" he asked. "Yes, I'm sorry to have kept you waiting," Gu Qing-shan replied. "It wasn't long at all, we're the ones who came early." The man turned around, looked at Gu Qing-shan and kindly said, "The reason why I'm here so early is because before young Master Road leaves, there's something I need to confirm." "What is it?" Gu Qing-shan asked. "Faith," the man replied. Gu Qing-shan thought for a bit and understood. In this world, not having faith was an extremely terrifying thing. Even vagabonds had faith. As a baron, if he didn't publicly declare his faith, it would cause widespread panic. The people would suspect which god he worshipped and which faction he belonged to. "Why are you asking about my faith now?" Gu Qing-shan asked. He quickly recalled his story in this world. In his memories, everything about the gods was a blur. For some reason, when the gods turned into laws, they didn't tell the three of them about the gods, nor did they try to fill in the gaps in their memories. The Viscount's envoy continued. "During the conferring banquet the day after tomorrow, the Viscount's daughter will also officially appear for the first time, so we must ensure that the faith of each guest does not conflict with her." "Please continue," Gu Qing-shan said. "The young lady worships the god of harvest, so we will ensure that every male and female present here are believers of the radiant and dawn. So if you believe in the god of withering, the god of death, or the god of darkness, then we will have to ask you not to participate in the banquet. After the banquet is over, if the Sir Viscount isn't drunk, he will bestow you with the title." The Viscount's envoy smiled inexplicably and continued. "Young Master Road, you are already 15 years old, it is time for you to confirm your faith. This will be beneficial for your future." Gu Qing-shan didn't answer for a while. "It's very clear that the other party is here to confirm my faith. His words have hinted enough that he wants me to consider worshipping the deities of the Radiant and Dawn faction. For him to be so cautious, it means that faith is a very important thing in this world. Furthermore, he mentioned the god of death just now. Isn't the god of death Anna? The inner plane is the only existence within the infinite worlds. If someone else becomes the god of death, then what would Anna be?" Gu Qing-shan's mind was in turmoil, so she walked up to the bookshelf in the corner of the room and casually picked up a dusty new book. This was the Deity's Handbook, a record of every deity that protected the mortal world. "Young Master Road, the deities of dawn are listed in the 5th volume, pages 48 to 61. The deities of radiance are listed in the 11th volume, pages 15 to 23, the Viscount's envoy reminded him. "Your memory is quite good," Gu Qing-shan praised. The Viscount's envoy smiled and replied, "It's just my job." Gu Qing-shan flipped through the book and saw the title of a deity in the 5th volume. After a bit of silence, he told the Viscount's envoy, "Your Excellency, the deity I worship and serve is the Lord of Dawn, the supreme deity above the star crown." The Viscount's envoy scowled. "This is a unique entity that has lost his divine power. Worshipping him is not in line with the Viscount's interests." Gu Qing-shan looked down and continued flipping through the handbook. At a certain page in the 11th volume, he stopped. "Your Excellency, the deity I serve is the Grand Empress of the Pantheon, Renedal." Chapter 1399. The Saint Spirit World. At the very center of this world, there was a divine mountain. The center of the Pantheon Empress Church in the mortal world was built on the peak of this mountain, and it was surrounded by other mountains. As the sovereign of the gods, she naturally enjoyed this honor. At this point, A resounding chime resounded across the entire Holy Church. In the Grand Holy Church, 8 archbishops and 3 cardinals were kneeling on the ground, sincerely praying towards the statue of the Grand Empress. It wasn't until they finished chanting the entire chapter of Revelation of Atonement that they slowly stood up. At this point, an old man wearing a white robe descended from above. Everyone bowed in unison. "We greet your Excellency the Pope. May you bask in the Empress' glory and spread her majesty in the mortal realm." The old man waved his hand and spoke. "No need to be so polite. The Empress' bell of retribution of fate has been rung. You must act now." One of the cardinals was confused. "Your Excellency the Pope, I remember the last time the bell of retribution of fate was triggered was due to a world-ending war countless years ago. What exactly is going to happen this time?" On his left and right, the big shots all revealed nervous expressions. Only when something angers the Empress will the bell of retribution of fate automatically ring. The bell of retribution of fate has been silent for far too many years. What exactly is going to happen this time? Under everyone's stares, the Pope's expression suddenly became strange. He slowly spoke. "The bell of retribution of fate is engraved with 8 divine characters, each representing 8 calamities. This was the trigger condition that the Empress set up according to her prophecy when she created this bell. Once one of these 8 calamities appears, the bell will ring. The corresponding divine characters of the calamity will also give off a divine glow to inform us of the situation." Everyone nodded, but they were even more confused. This was something that everyone already knew, so why did the Pope specifically mention it? The Pope sighed deeply and spoke. "When I went to check the situation of the bell of retribution of fate, I found that there was a divine prophecy on the bell." "What?" Everyone exclaimed in shock. Who would have thought that the Grand Empress had already set up such a hidden divine prophecy countless years ago? What exactly happened? Everyone felt uneasy. Seeing that, the Pope knew that he had to explain this. "Listen carefully. I will now summon the divine prophecy." With a solemn expression, he recited. "Mortals look for the gods they can serve during the coming-of-age ceremony, and the devil is also hiding among them." Its eyes moved between the King of Dawn and the Pantheon Empress, and finally decided to hide under the protection of the Empress. The devil's plan will not succeed, and it will not receive the Empress's grace. Instead, it will activate the prophecy on the bell of punishment, and everyone will be on their guard. Go, servants of the goddess. You must find that devil and purify it with the eternal holy fire. After reciting the divine revelation, the Pope took a deep breath and continued. Immediately arrange for people to go to the 2 great empires, the 9 dukedoms, over 100 territories, almost 1,000 counties. No matter where that devil is hiding, you must find it and cleanse it. This is the Empress's oracle. Everyone knelt on the ground and said loudly, "We will obey the oracle." At this moment, the huge church was like an awakened beast of war, entering a state of frenzy. Its terrifying power was like tentacles that reached out to every corner of the saint's spirit world. The other side. On the other side of the main road. An insignificant location on the map. The village of Ramon. The biggest house in the village. The Pantheon Empress? The god you've decided to worship and serve is the Pantheon Empress? The Viscount Envoy asked. His gaze fell on Gu Qingshan with a bit of disdain. What a country bumpkin, saying that the god he wants to worship is the Pantheon Empress, Renedal. As a mortal, how could he casually call the deity's true name in such an undignified situation? Whatever, this brat is lucky. The Pantheon Empress is the sovereign of the gods. According to the deity chronicle, after establishing the church, this deity had already left to do other things in the boundless void. The divine runes and power she left behind were powerful, but they were all for mortals to use. She isn't in this world, so this deity shouldn't have heard what this brat said just now. That's right, Gu Qingshan replied. The Viscount Envoy continued. Very well, I will perform the faith ritual for you, but I must remind you, from now on, you can only call out the deity's name, not their true name. Only deities can call them that, mortals doing so might anger the deity. Gu Qingshan realized and spoke with a grateful expression. Thank you, Sir Envoy, for your reminder. The Viscount Envoy nodded. Although he's a country bumpkin, he's a sharp one. That's good. The Viscount Envoy opened his bag and carefully took out a book made entirely of metal. Gu Qingshan looked at the book in her hand, then at the other party's book. Aside from the material, the two books were exactly the same. The envoy explained, "This is the true handbook of the deities. It contains the will of the gods. Other than the churches, only Sir Viscount has a copy in the entire prefecture," Gu Qingshan commented. "Sir Viscount is truly impressive." The envoy smiled and said, "Come, place your hand on the book, recite the name of the deity you wish to believe in, sincerely pray, and you will become a follower of the deity." Gu Qingshan placed her hand on the book as instructed, then recited the words from her memory. "O Grand Empress of the Pantheon, I, a tiny and lowly being of the mortal world, desire to become your follower." A moment of silence. A flash of light suddenly erupted from the book, knocking Gu Qingshan's hand away. Gu Qingshan was also struck, and couldn't help but take a few steps back. The Viscount Envoy's expression warped and screamed, "Guards! Guards, hurry!" Instantly, 8 fully armored knights abruptly appeared. They exuded intense killing intent as they drew their weapons and surrounded Gu Qingshan. Crow wanted to draw his sword right away, but was stopped by Gu Qingshan's hand. Gu Qingshan glanced at the knights around her and calmly asked, "Sir Envoy, what's going on here?" The Viscount Envoy's expression was grim as he replied in a low voice, "The deities would never reject the faith of mortals, unless they were wicked entities that were trying to fool their way through. Only then would the deities reject them." Gu Qingshan froze. He glanced at the soul points number that was continuously decreasing in the void of space and chuckled. Could there be a mistake somewhere? The deities had died and turned into the current laws of the world. They welcomed my soul points contribution, hoping that I would be able to help them, and even gave me a blue sword pattern as proof of my existence. Why did they insist that I'm a wicked entity? It should be the opposite. This doesn't make sense. Perhaps the problem lies with the Grand Empress of the Pantheon. I have some sort of connection with Boss. Perhaps Renitals will notice this and rejected my faith. With that in mind, Gu Qingshan patted Crow's hand and whispered, "Money." Crow took out his bag of money and put it in Gu Qingshan's hand. Gu Qingshan tossed the bag of money to the Viscount Envoy and spoke with a relaxed expression. "Sir Envoy, just as you said, I might have angered the deity by calling her by her true name, so I want to try out other deities and prove my innocence." The Viscount Envoy received the bag of money, silently squeezed it, then understood. "Very well, since this matter is related to wicked entities, I can't afford to make any mistakes." He stared closely at Gu Qingshan, then took out a pure white stone from his bag. "I am the Viscount's chief priest, so I have the right to conduct the final examination on you." While saying so, the Viscount Envoy tossed the pure white stone to Gu Qingshan. "This is the detection stone of the gods. It's specifically used to determine the attributes of all living beings. If you're a heretic, it'll immediately give you a definite reminder. If you're innocent, it'll show you your faith aptitude. Road, this is your final chance to prove your innocence. Please hold it tightly." Gu Qingshan didn't say anything else and held the white stone tightly. A second later, the void of space seemed to be filled with the voices of countless children devoutly singing a hymn. A resounding explosion suddenly resounded. A solemn and vast holy white light erupted from Gu Qingshan's body, piercing through the roof and into the sky. Chapter 1400. Like a reverse waterfall, the holy white light shot all the way to the sky. Gu Qingshan's body was bathed in the light, almost like a legendary god. "Let go of that rock!" the Viscount Envoy shouted. Gu Qingshan followed his order and let go of the white rock. Instantly, all the supernatural phenomena and voices disappeared. The room returned to silence. "Am I a pagan?" Gu Qingshan asked. Around him, the 8 knights who originally surrounded him had sheathed their swords and bowed to him. "No. Of course you aren't a pagan," the Viscount Envoy excitedly declared. "Then my faith is—" While Gu Qingshan was talking, he suddenly stopped. The Pantheon handbook, made entirely out of metal in the Viscount Envoy's hand, suddenly gave off a white light that enveloped Gu Qingshan's body. "You are the protector of the divine kingdom and the mortal realm, the executor of the power of the gods, the believer and servant of the condemnation codex," the Viscount Envoy declared. Following the Viscount Envoy's declaration, the white light abruptly turned into a card that appeared in front of Gu Qingshan. A blank card. Looking at this card, Gu Qingshan felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity. He then turned to the Viscount Envoy and asked, "Can I have this card?" "Of course you can. This card is hidden deep within the Origin of Laws. It has been many years since it appeared," the Viscount Envoy replied. "That's true. I don't think I've heard of the Church of Condemnation," Gu Qingshan tried asking. "That's right," the Viscount Envoy spoke emotionally. "The slaughter and evil of mortals, as well as the struggle and war of the deities, whenever heaven and earth are unable to decide, the condemnation codex manifested from the power of all the deities would carry out the judgment, and you are the only condemner to appear in the last 700 years. From now on, you will be the representative of the gods' condemnation codex in the mortal realm, carrying out the gods' precepts, judgments, and punishments. You must prepare yourself. The Viscount will definitely take you in as his son-in-law." Gu Qingshan didn't answer. When he held the blank card in his hand, his own image appeared on the card. He held 2 swords in his hands and quietly floated in the air. This was him as a card. All of a sudden, lines of glowing text appeared in the void. "Identity verified. You've activated a condemnation codex bestowment card from the inner plane. This is a card that has been waiting for you for countless years. Only a condemnation card like yourself can use it. With this condemnation codex bestowed card, your condemnation codex will fully awaken." Gu Qingshan was stunned. "Why is it like this?" he asked quietly. "The war god Ui replied. As you hold the title of the cherub of condemnation of the inner plane, the gods could not accept your faith, so as soon as they saw this title, they immediately sought your help. Even though you are still so weak, they were still willing to guide you here, hoping to borrow your power to fight against the plague, the monsters, and the wraiths." Gu Qingshan fell silent. From the void of space, a palm-sized black leather booklet silently appeared and hovered in front of Gu Qingshan. Lines of glowing text quickly appeared in the void of space. "Frowny face, the condemnation codex has awakened. From now on, you are the god you worship, as well as the representative of the god you worship in this world." Gu Qingshan received the booklet and flipped to the first page, only to see 2 lines of text. "Owner of this codex. Road, alias. Beneath the stars, above the earth, you who wield the codex are the same as wielding the authority of condemnation." Then she flipped to the next page. There were 2 card slots here, one of which was empty with 2 lines of text written below. "Frowny face, rare divine artifact. Condemnation of the inner plane, Crimson Demon Divine Spear. This weapon carries your will, currently suppressing the apocalypse door knockers outside the reality gate at a certain location." Gu Qingshan looked at the second card slot. There was a new card here, depicting a woman surrounded by a withered yellow mist, kneeling on the ground and praying devoutly. In the sky above her, a man with a pair of wings of light spread out from his back appeared compassionate and silently listened to her prayers. Gu Qingshan took out the card. Divine Word. Cleanse. Activating this card will dispel all controlling powers that attach themselves to the deities and living beings. Once you hold the condemnation codex in your hand and chant the incantation, you will be able to activate this card. What a powerful card! Gu Qingshan suddenly realized. When Little Dusk fought me for the first time, she used a single card to seal my weapon. That's extremely powerful. So even in the inner plane, condemnation cards are synonymous with power. Gu Qingshan sighed, then put the card back and flipped to the next page. He found that he couldn't turn to the next page. A line of glowing text appeared. Frowny face, only by becoming stronger will you be qualified to wield more condemnation cards. So that's how it is. Gu Qingshan silently put the black handbook away and looked at the Viscount envoy. The other party was carefully observing him. Why do I feel like your gaze is a bit different? Gu Qingshan smiled and said. A condemnation knight is rare and has a bright future, so Road, your good fortune has come, the Viscount envoy said. He walked up to the wall, took out a short cane, and knocked it on the wall. A door appeared on the wall. The Viscount envoy stepped aside and said, Let's go, the Viscount has already been informed of what happened here. He will first confer a title on you, then personally notify the Church of Condemnation. This church doesn't have a branch in the duchy, so you might need to stay in the Viscount's manor for a few more days. While you're at it, see which young lady's personality you're compatible with. Gu Qingshan and Crow exchanged glances. The Viscount envoy was an experienced man, so he immediately said, Your future isn't limited to just being a baron, Road. I hope that you'll be careful with your marriage. The heir suddenly became silent. Me? With him? Crow pointed at himself, then at Gu Qingshan, his expression full of killing intent. Ah, you've misunderstood. I don't have that kind of relationship with my knight. Gu Qingshan stopped Crow and explained in a low voice. The Viscount envoy glanced at Crow. Why would such a beautiful woman stay by your side? How could it not be that kind of relationship? Look, after being seen through, this woman is pouting cutely, still a bit angry from embarrassment. Ha, whatever, this is a young man's business. The Viscount envoy tactfully didn't say anything else. Fortunately, under Gu Qingshan's fierce glare, Crow managed to restrain himself from attacking. Gu Qingshan sighed in relief and said, Let's go. He started walking towards the door. Crow followed behind him. The 8 knights sheathed their weapons and also followed behind. Suddenly, Gu Qingshan stopped at the door. What is it? The Viscount envoy asked. Wait a moment, Gu Qingshan said. He released his inner sight and coiled it around his left wrist. However, he saw that the deep blue sword pattern had already turned into a burning divine character, causing him to feel a slight pain in his wrist. The entire world abruptly faded away. Darkness returned. At the very next moment, Gu Qingshan found herself standing in the middle of a vast sea of stars. The world spirit manifested into thousands of voices that spoke in unison. O stranger, the first invasion of the plague world has begun. Location is Ramon village. Repel them, use their corpses to send a warning to the entire world. After completing this mission, we shall first acknowledge your position and grant a bit of power to the world's testimony. Instantly, the sea of stars faded away. Gu Qingshan found herself back in her room. A long howl resounded from outside. Following that, the sounds of crying, screaming, running, and fighting erupted all at once. Gu Qingshan released her inner sight to check. 2 people wearing yiksha masks had grown 7 to 8 legs on their bodies, rushing into the crowd like spiders and madly slaughtering them. Infected. And they're from the Wraith realm. Who would have thought the plague apocalypse was the first to infect the Wraith realm? Sir Envoy, something has happened in my village. As the mayor, I have to take a look. Gu Qingshan wielded a bow in her hand, then disappeared from the room in a flash. Crow also left with her. The Viscount envoy's expression changed a bit and muttered, Strange, what happened to those 2 wraiths? Why did they become like this, and they even dare to kill our people? Young Master Road is still young, he might be in danger. He made a gesture. The 8 knights also disappeared from the room with him. Chapter 1401. The jet-black, 5-legged monster opened its mouth wide and swallowed a human head into its stomach. Oh, how wonderful! How wonderful! The wraith monster uttered a resounding roar with a human voice. After eating the human head, its whole body wriggled up and down, and another long leg grew out. The 6-legged human-faced monster looked up, searching through the fleeing crowd, and quickly locked onto a certain girl. Ah, such a fragrant smell! Could it be a believer of the goddess of flowers and spring water? The monster smirked, then abruptly let out a cruel high-pitched laugh. It must be delicious! A second later, a faint shadow flashed. The monster appeared in front of the girl, its 2 blade-like legs stabbing towards her. The girl panicked and shouted, "Frost spring!" A cold current appeared out of nowhere and struck the 6-legged human-faced monster's body. The monster's body leaned back a bit, then stopped. It looked down at the girl from above and casually spoke. "That's all? You really are the lowest form of believer. Your greatest value is to provide a bit of power for my evolution." While it spoke, the monster reached out its 4 legs and caught the girl. It opened its mouth full of tiny, sharp teeth. All of a sudden, the sound of air being torn apart resounded in the wind. 5 blue-white arcs of lightning struck its head. The monster staggered from the attack. The power of the lightning caused its entire body to twitch and freeze in place, unable to move at all. Lightning thaumaturgy, dream jolt! Gu Qing-shan put her bow away and shouted, "Crow!" Right at this moment, a black figure flew through the sky and landed on top of the monster's head. The female knight wielded a rapier, stabbing it deep into the monster's head at an extremely slow speed. "Explode!" She spat out a single word. Boom! Flames shot to the sky. The monster's gigantic body crashed into the ground, no longer breathing. Crow, on the other hand, had already retreated several dozen meters away with the girl in her arms. "Beautiful girl, may I invite you for dinner?" Crow looked down at the girl in her arms and displayed her usual charming smile. The girl felt grateful and replied, "Thank you for saving me, of course you can, auntie." Crow's expression froze. Gu Qing-shan turned her head away and put the arrow back on the bowstring. The longbow in his hand was one of the 3 items in the chest. It was the best bow in the town, and it was very fitting for the mayor's identity. There was still one monster left. Gu Qing-shan was silent for a moment, then her hands suddenly moved quickly. Swish, 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 swish. Archery, chaotic dance. 7 or 8 arrows flashing with lightning streaked across the sky in irregular arcs, all of them shooting towards the monster. The monster stretched out its long legs and knocked away 5 arrows, but there were still 2 arrows stuck in its body. The monster immediately convulsed, unable to move for a moment. Lightning God Art Dream Jolt. This divine ability had always been very useful. 8 knights suddenly appeared and rushed forward. With extremely clean slashes, they dismembered the monster on the spot. "Knight, it's someone from the Viscount Manor. Young Master Road has also made his move. The monster has been killed. We're saved." The crowd cheered. The Viscount Envoy appeared from the void of space, standing next to Gu Qing-shan. "Young Master Road, do these kinds of monsters often appear in your town?" he asked. "Never, and these people are clearly from the Wraith realm. I just don't know what happened to them," Gu Qing-shan replied. The envoy fell into thought. "How strange," he muttered. Gu Qing-shan reminded him, "From what that monster said just now, we can tell that it still remembers everything that happened when it was still a wraith." The envoy nodded. "It seems they ran into some sort of misfortune, a bit like." The envoy turned his head and looked at the crowd who were watching the show from afar. He asked loudly, "Are any of you believers of the Lord of Plague?" No one answered. The envoy then asked, "What about the Torment Serpent? And the Maiden of Pain? Are any of you believers of these 2 deities?" Everyone exchanged glances. An old man gathered his courage and replied, "Sir, we're all farmers. We usually worship the deities of dawn, earth, and spring. None of us believe in the deities of death. The envoy also felt a bit helpless and turned his gaze back to the monster's corpse. If there were believers of the Lord of Plague, they would be able to tell what kind of poison these two wraiths were afflicted with. But for a small farming town, it would be a bit difficult to find such believers. The envoy turned to Gu Qingshan and said, "Very well, I'll bring these two corpses back to the prefecture. While investigating the cause, I'll also notify the people of the Wraith realm. Perhaps they might know something. Young Master Road, what do you think?" "I'm very grateful to have received your assistance in the matter of Ramon Town," Gu Qingshan said. The envoy nodded, walked forward, and began to order the knights to collect the monster's corpse. As Gu Qingshan was about to follow to take a closer look at the corpse, he felt an intense pain from his wrist. The blue pattern once again burst into flames. Thousands of hurried voices resounded in his ears. "Frowny face, an unexpected situation has occurred. A tiny fragment of the monster's world had suddenly intruded your location. From a dimensional perspective, it will overlap with Ramon Town for about 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, this fragment will continue to float forward. The overlapping effect between it and Ramon Town will disappear. Attention, you must ensure your own survival, as well as the survival of your people as much as possible. Overlapping worlds." Gu Qingshan drew an arrow, knocked it on the bowstring, and cautiously observed his surroundings. The sky was alternating between night and day. Clouds occasionally appeared and completely disappeared at other times. On the ground, various illusory scenes were slowly becoming solid. Monsters. Gu Qingshan's heart tightened and shouted, "Militia! Where are the militia?" A group of farmers parted the crowd and stepped forward. They held various weapons in their hands and loudly replied, "Young Master Road, we heard that there were monsters eating people, so we immediately gathered and rushed here." Gu Qingshan's gaze swept through these people. Indeed, this was one of the strongest worlds, but these people were only the most ordinary of farmers. Perhaps they were experts in farming, or perhaps they were capable of dealing with some wild beasts, but it was still far from enough to rely on these people to fight against truly terrifying monsters. Gu Qingshan immediately ordered, "Gather everyone in the town and take refuge in the disaster shelter. Go now." When they first explored this land, there were many wild beasts. To better defend against the ferocious beasts' attacks, the first group of pioneers worked together to create a sturdy disaster shelter. The farmers were all stunned. "It's been many years since I've been to that place. Furthermore, wasn't the monster already killed?" All of a sudden, a gigantic foot appeared from the void of space and stomped heavily on the ground. Bam! Everyone was shaken off the ground. Large numbers of houses collapsed from the impact. The foot was as large as 2 houses, with no end in sight. As it stomped on the ground, it disappeared into the void of space, disappearing without a trace. This scene stunned everyone. Gu Qingshan's sense of unease was becoming stronger. Quite obviously, what happened just now was the sign of overlapping worlds. Once they completely overlapped, the owner of the foot just now would appear. "Militia, heed my order, go. If anyone dares to screw up at this point, I, Road, swear that I will hang them in front of everyone," Gu Qingshan sternly shouted. The farmers trembled as if they just woke up from a dream. They immediately turned around, loudly calling for the villagers to head towards the disaster shelter. "What's the situation?" Crow came over and sent his voice to ask. "The overlapping worlds will last for about 10 minutes, Gu Qingshan replied. Crow also appeared cautious. The Viscount Envoy brought 8 knights and walked next to Gu Qingshan. "Young Master Road, you seem to know something," Gu Qingshan casually replied. "Of course, there have been more and more strange occurrences recently. Today I even found a giant wolf that I've never seen before in the wilderness. My knights and I had to use everything we had in order to kill it." The Viscount Envoy appeared cautious and asked, "What do you think the situation is? Is it the prelude to another duchy's invasion?" "No, I think it's even worse than that," Gu Qingshan replied. The Viscount Envoy glanced at the collapsed buildings, then at the monster corpses on the ground, asking, "Do you think we need reinforcements?" "If we do, come immediately," Gu Qingshan replied. The Viscount Envoy drew his short staff without hesitation and lightly tapped the void of space. He quickly chanted, "I, the priest of the god of war, hereby summon the duchy's 5th border guard, requesting immediate reinforcements." A few moments later, the void of space opened up, revealing a fully armored man. He looked at everyone and declared with a cold and stern voice, "I have accepted your summons. The 5th border guard is currently on their way, arriving in 30 seconds, ready to engage in battle at any moment. However, I must remind you, if you summon the duchy's border guard, only to be found to be a false report, not just you, but even your Viscount will be severely punished." All was quiet. The knights of the Viscount Prefecture gulped nervously. The Viscount Envoy maintained his calm and pointed at Gu Qingshan. "This is the mayor, as well as a newly awakened condemner. He is requesting your assistance, condemner." The man glanced at Gu Qingshan and took off his helmet. He was a ferocious-looking man with an expression full of killing intent. He looked at Gu Qingshan, observed her for a bit, then loudly declared, "A condemner, how rare! Why are you looking for trouble with our border guard?" "I'm not looking for trouble," Gu Qingshan spoke with a serious expression. "I have an emergency here. I'm afraid that monsters will soon attack the town. The militia won't be able to deal with them." The ferocious-looking man walked forward. The cold expression on his face slowly disappeared. "So that's what it is. You should have told us earlier. We brothers will definitely help you deal with it." The ferocious-looking man patted Gu Qingshan's shoulder and enthusiastically said. Chapter 1402. Gu Qingshan looked at the man. A round face, a large beard, a scar on the outside of his left eye that seemed to have been cut by some sort of weapon, a man of around 20 years of age. There was an insignia emblazoned on his pauldron. A black background with yellow patterns, a shield shaped like a lion and an eagle. After searching through her memories for a bit, Gu Qingshan recalled the origin of this insignia. This was the insignia of the duchy's military minister, Count Heath. In this world, the clans of the duchy revolved around the deity they worshipped, absorbing those of the same faith to become a part of their organization and work for them. In other words, this man was a knight of the Count's manor. Gu Qingshan tried asking, "How may I be of service, Your Excellency?" "Ahaha, it's nothing. My family, sir, has a few troublesome matters to deal with. I was thinking that if you can mature for a few more years and learn that technique from the Condemnation Codex, you might be able to help us," the man answered honestly. "So that's what it was. Seems like they've already asked around and found out that only a condemner can solve their problem." Gu Qingshan smiled and replied, "As long as it's not something evil, I can accept it right now." The man was overjoyed and said, "Young Master Road, I know of you, but I didn't know that you've become a condemner. I am the knight captain of the Heath family." More, he pointed behind him. Rows of neatly armored warriors appeared from the void one after another. "These brothers are my subordinates. We belong to Count Heath's second knight group. We were selected to guard the border near your area this year." Gu Qingshan greeted them one by one. As Moore was about to say something else, he and Gu Qingshan both went silent. Everyone looked up, only to see a crimson shadow slowly descending from the sky. This shadow covered the entire sky, causing everyone to feel an inexplicable sense of anxiety. "What is this? Have you ever seen such a thing before?" Moore asked. "We don't have such a thing here," Gu Qingshan replied. The Viscount Envoy also scowled. "Such a gigantic shadow, what exactly is?" He abruptly went silent. Two circular blood-red rays of light appeared from the phantom and directly hit the stone floor in front of everyone. Sizzle, 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 sizzle. Peepa! The ground gave off a cracking sound, layer by layer turning into fine powder. The two blood-colored lights moved together, sweeping back and forth in the small town. Everywhere the light passed, everything transformed into ash and vanished on the spot. "What kind of spell is this?" Crow couldn't help but shout. More abruptly turned around and looked at one of the knights. "I remember you're a believer of the God of secrets and truth." The knight was sweating profusely and his face was pale. He said while trembling, "Sir, I've already checked. This is a gaze, a gaze." At the end, he couldn't help but cry out involuntarily. There was dead silence. His gaze. In other words, the crimson shadow that covered the sky was actually some kind of creature? Everyone couldn't help but look up again. In the sky, the crimson shadow was still scanning the entire town. It seemed to be looking for something. As the worlds overlapped, its body gradually solidified, almost as if it was about to descend from another world. Moore gulped and muttered, "His gaze alone is so powerful, damn it, what exactly is this?" Gu Qingshan's mind turned and silently held the earth sword. At this point, no one was paying attention to him. Gu Qingshan held the earth sword tightly, looked at the crimson shadow, and focused his mind. A line of glowing text quickly appeared on the war god UI frowny face activating Earth's Choice. To completely eliminate this extinct monster of infinite worlds will consume the following soul points. Gu Qingshan was surprised. This is unmeasurable? This was the first time he had ever heard such an explanation from the war god UI. Gritting his teeth, he let the earth sword go, allowing it to disappear into the void of space, and put his hand on his inventory bag. If it really doesn't work, he was prepared to ignore everyone else's shock and draw the Bow of Withering Souls. This was a dreamscape soul artifact that had the power to corrode all things. Perhaps it could still be used. In the void of space, the crimson shadow had slowly turned from blurry to clear. He could already see its body, which seemed similar to a human's. It was looking down at the town. The civilians of the town had all gone to the shelter, so there was nothing on the surface that could attract its attention, except the giant bloody eye slowly moved, leaving 2 long streaks of bloody light in its wake as it attacked Gu Qingshan's group. Everything in its path was destroyed by the bloody eye, leaving only 2 bottomless ravines on the ground. Holy Mother above, how are we supposed to win against this monster? Someone muttered in a low voice. The town's space has been sealed. We can't escape. Another knight exclaimed in shock. Moore's expression was unprecedentedly solemn, holding the clan's emblem in his hand as he hurriedly said something, apparently to pass on a message. He suddenly put the emblem away and shouted, "We can't escape, everyone, prepare for battle." Everyone drew their weapons. All of a sudden, the giant bloody humanoid figure abruptly looked up. The 2 streaks of bloody light on the ground quickly left the town and shot towards the boundless darkness of the night. The humanoid figure seemed to have noticed something and disappeared in a flash. It had left. Everyone had already prepared themselves to fight to the death, but the monster simply vanished without a trace. A second later, Gu Qingshan and Moore both flashed and disappeared. A black streak of light flew through the night, passing where they originally stood. The black streak of light struck a wall and slowly manifested. It was a whole black carapace. Its head consisted of a single pair of large pincers full of sharp teeth. "Save, save!" It spoke to everyone. Everyone fell into a state of complete confusion. What exactly is going on? Seeing that no one reacted, another black streak of light descended from the void of space and fused with the black carapace. The carapace coiled around itself and slowly disappeared, leaving only a thick mass of black ink where it was. The mass of black ink suddenly turned into a pair of pincers that tore at both sides. "What is it doing?" Crow couldn't help but ask. A second later, a large hole was ripped open in the void of space. This hole was filled with murky water, making it impossible to see what was inside. Following the wind, a dark, evil, and rotten aura drifted out from the hole. The wall that the pair of pincers attached itself to quickly turned into a crazily writhing wall of flesh. Everyone had never seen such a thing before, so they all held their breath. but Gu Qingshan knew that the other side must be the extinct monster world. He silently released his inner sight to look into the hole. The hole seemed to be a deep ocean. Within the boundless murky water, there was a crimson shadow that connected heaven and earth. It was the monster from before. Its hand was as large as a mountain, holding a struggling black shadow. Two blood-red glows shone through the murky water to illuminate the black shadow, showing that the crimson shadow was staring at the black shadow, causing the black shadow to reveal its true form. It was a giant crab with a carapace full of sharp black spikes. The giant crab was madly struggling, but couldn't escape from the crimson shadow's grasp. "You, only you. I've been waiting for you. Save me." For some reason, it was able to sense Gu Qingshan's inner sight and spoke into Gu Qingshan's inner sight. Gu Qingshan sighed. "Me saving you? Never mind if I have the ability or not. I won't be able to survive if I provoke that crimson shadow. I'm sorry, I can't do it either. I'm not a match for it," Gu Qingshan sent her voice. As he was about to retract his inner sight, the giant crab abruptly exploded. It quickly spoke. "I'm hiding here because you are the only one who can save me. I'm on your side. Please help me, I will definitely repay you." Gu Qingshan shook his head and retreated his inner sight from the hole. Seeing that he was about to leave, the giant crab suddenly sent its voice. "Oh, wait a minute. I have a message for you. You must save me, Gu Qingshan." Gu Qingshan was completely stunned. The extinct monster world. This world was filled with monsters that couldn't even be seen in the space vortex. Why does it know my name? Could it be a parallel world version of me? Gu Qingshan glanced at the crimson shadow, gritted his teeth, and retreated. Outside, everyone was still on high alert. "Don't come any closer, this hole is too strange, it should be another world on the other side," more shouted. Gu Qingshan silently stood still. Even when the war god Ui gave him the Void War God quest, he didn't feel this unimaginable. Too powerful, that crimson shadow is too powerful. Even if the giant crab brought me a message from another parallel world version, there's nothing I can do to save it. The final result would most likely be both of us being killed by the crimson shadow. While he was thinking, his gaze was suddenly attracted by something. A line of numbers was jumping on the war god Yu. 3:59, 3:58, 3:57. Gu Qingshan couldn't help but ask, "What is this?" The war god Ui replied, "A countdown of 10 minutes. When the countdown reaches 0, the fragments of the extinct monster world will break free from the overlapping effects and will no longer be able to return to the village." Gu Qingshan froze and looked at the number again. 3:45, 3:44. Wait a minute. It's not over yet. Gu Qingshan abruptly released his inner sight into the hole again, diving into the murky seawater. Only to see that the crimson shadow was doing everything it could to attack the black spiky crab in its hand. The giant crab was barely able to block it, but was still held tightly in its hand, unable to move. But it didn't give up right away. Instead, it shot out a few sharp spikes that gave off a black glow, causing the crimson shadow to hesitate and pause its attack. But after shooting out those spikes, the giant crab was clearly weakened. "Try your best to hold on for a bit longer. I only have one chance to save you," Gu Qingshan's voice suddenly came. Hearing that, the giant crab regained its composure and continued to block the crimson shadow's attack. "How much longer?" "Soon, how much longer?" "A bit longer, just hold on for a bit longer." "I can't hold on much longer, 20 more seconds." "Farewell, I'm going to die. I'm coming." Following her inner sight, Gu Qingshan suddenly stabbed the wooden bow into the ground. On the war god Ui, there were only 10 seconds left before the two worlds overlap. The first second, Gu Qingshan's figure flashed and entered the hole in the seawater. Shanu just attract its attention for a bit, then immediately return. "Yes, Gongzi." The fourth second, Shanu leapt into the air. Instantly, boundless black fog enveloped Shanu. She turned into a dragon and abruptly crashed into the Crimson Shadow. The Crimson Shadow immediately raised its head and looked at the demon dragon cautiously. Taking advantage of this brief moment, Gu Qingshan landed in front of the black spiky crab, held it down with her left hand and took out a black leather book with her right. The 6th second, at this point, Shanu's black dragon form had already disappeared. She only needed to draw its attention to complete her mission. In the blink of an eye, she had teleported back to the small town. Gu Qingshan quickly chanted, "The life and death of all things is but an instant. With my power of condemnation, your suffering shall surely be relieved. Divine word, cleanse." The final second, the black leather book gave off a holy white light that struck the Crimson Shadow's hand. It let go. Time was up. Gu Qingshan and the black spiky crab abruptly disappeared. Divine skill, shadow shift. A single wooden bough silently floated in the murky seawater. The overlapping of the two worlds had ended. Roar! The Crimson Shadow roared helplessly. Chapter 1403. Gu Qingshan grabbed the giant black crab and returned to the other side of the void tunnel. "Gongzi, it was so dangerous just now," Shanu's fearful voice resounded in his thought sea. As soon as Gu Qingshan returned, she went back into his thought sea. Just a bit more and I wouldn't have made it back." Gu Qingshan sighed in relief and put the crab back on the ground. The overlapping of the two worlds had ended, so the Crimson Shadow wouldn't be able to catch up for now. Now I need to find a chance to ask this crab what kind of message it brought. But first, I need to explain the crab's background to everyone. Gu Qingshan suddenly noticed that something wasn't right. There was no sound around. Everyone was still standing there, anxiously waiting, but none of them seemed to be able to see Gu Qingshan. Gu Qingshan asked Crow and the duck plushie, "Hey, what's going on with you two?" Crow wielded his rapier with a calm and cold expression, seemingly ready to help at a moment's notice. But he didn't react at all. He couldn't hear Gu Qingshan's voice, nor could he see Gu Qingshan. "What's going on?" Gu Qingshan turned to look, only to see that the void tunnel was still open. Could it be that the overlapping of the two worlds hasn't ended yet? That's troublesome. The Crimson Shadow will definitely catch up. While Gu Qingshan was thinking, a voice came from below. "Don't worry, this is only an illusion. The overlapping of the two worlds has ended. That guy won't be able to catch up," the giant black crab replied. Gu Qingshan looked at the crab, then at everyone else and asked, "Why can't they see me?" "Because I've brought you a message. No one can know about this," the giant crab replied, as if it was obvious. Gu Qingshan went silent. This was essentially creating a barrier out of thin air. Not only was it able to create a fake void tunnel, but it was also able to make me invisible inside the barrier, watching everything that happened outside without anyone noticing me. Crow, the Viscount Envoy, and even the Great Knight Moore were all very powerful people. Even they were completely fooled by this technique. That's a bit terrifying. The me from a parallel world has already mastered such a powerful spell technique? Gu Qingshan sighed. "What are you talking about? What parallel world you?" the giant crab asked. Gu Qingshan looked down at the crab and said, "Didn't you bring me a message? Apart from me in the parallel world, who else would bring me a message?" The giant crab spoke. "Parallel worlds are actually a smokescreen." Gu Qingshan raised her brows and asked, "Camouflage?" The giant crab waved its pincer in annoyance and said, "Don't ask, I'm just a spell, I don't know much, I might mislead you with my words." Gu Qingshan's expression did not change. "Shanu, is it a spell?" he silently asked. The 6 paths great mountain sword could cut through all laws, so it was very sensitive to spells. Shanu stayed silent for a bit, then said, "Young master, it is a living creature, but I vaguely feel that its life is unnatural." Gu Qingshan was once again impressed by this black crab. This black crab unleashed an isolation technique, then turned itself into a living creature created from a spell. What kind of person would be able to achieve such a feat? And then there's the message. With that in mind, Gu Qingshan said, "Now that you're safe, please tell me the message." The black crab crawled in front of Gu Qingshan and said, "Do you see the spikes on my back? Put your hand on the longest thorn." As a spell that was able to become a living creature and fight against the Crimson Shadow for so long, Gu Qingshan didn't want to worry about anything anymore. He did as he was told and reached his hand out. As soon as his hand touched the spike, it was poked. The fresh blood fell onto the spike and disappeared at an extremely fast speed. The black crab replied, That's right, you have the war god authority, it is indeed you now, the spell will be activated." As soon as it said so, the black crab scattered into a puddle of black water that quickly spread in every direction. The black water had covered the entire world, turning everything into darkness. Darkness. Silence. Suddenly there was light. The light flew over from an extremely distant place, erasing all the darkness. Around Gu Qingshan, countless scenes appeared one after another. They were scenes of every battle he fought, every conversation he had, every day, every expression he made, every decision he made. Time flowed backward, and every day of his past appeared in a dazzling manner. Backwards. Straight backwards. This life. The past life. Every scene was quickly flashing past Gu Qingshan's eyes. Until that scene, the Freedom Federation. The slums. On the 22nd floor of a high-rise building. The third room from the left. A small figure stood in front of the window, looking down at this world. As Gu Qingshan saw that figure, his pupils contracted. He quickly walked forward, stood next to the figure, and looked. "It's me. My younger self." His young face was filled with confusion and pain, wiping away his tears, trying his best not to cry. Gu Qingshan's gaze scanned through the room, then locked onto the glowing calendar on the wall. "This time," he muttered. "It's this time. My parents met with a car accident, passed away just 7 days ago. On that day, I stood alone in front of the window, looking down at the entire city of metal, thinking about how to survive by myself. Why did I return to this moment?" At this point, the war god Ui seemed to have noticed something and lit up. Lines of glowing text appeared. Frowny face. Specific scenario accepted. Identity verification in progress. Verification completed. Beginning to fuse with the scenario, awakening the original spell hidden here. 3-1 Awaken. A figure suddenly appeared in the small, narrow room. This figure was so faint that it almost didn't exist, so faint that its figure couldn't be seen. The figure looked at Gu Qingshan and began to speak. Frowny face. The crab is an undying causality technique, hidden within the space vortex. Only when it senses that you've matured to a certain point would it awaken and seek you out. If you haven't matured to this point, it would be fine to live out your life as you wish. But since you've matured to this point, been found by the crab and passed its trial, you will receive this message. Although it's a message, I really want to chat with you for a bit longer, but there's no time. The figure waved his hand. At the bottom of the war god UI, among the row of unopened options, 3 suddenly lit up. One of them looked very familiar to Gu Qingshan. It was the golden saber that had silently grown longer. The other 2 icons were an eye and a square. Gu Qingshan had never seen these 2 icons before. The figure seemed to be able to see the war god UI, pointed at the 3 options in the void of space, and spoke. "The meaning of my existence is to help you activate one of these 3 options. But keep in mind, once you choose one of them, the other 2 will permanently disappear." "Why is that?" Gu Qingshan asked. "Because all 3 of them have different causality and logic, so they cannot exist at the same time," the figure replied. "The first option, the figure pointed at the eye icon and spoke. "This is the eye of truth. If you choose it, you will be able to see what the majority of living beings and things inside the reality gate will experience at a certain point in the future. After saying so, the figure pointed at the square icon and continued. This is dimensional travel. It will allow you to immediately leave your current world and travel to any other world inside the reality gate. Gu Qing-shan nodded and replied, "The truth and undying, indeed," the figure agreed. "With the eye of truth, you will be able to see many truths of the future, allowing you to easily solve many problems you face. With dimensional travel, you will be able to escape from any situation. No one will be able to kill you. What do you think of these two abilities?" "Powerful, surpassing the power of deities," Gu Qing-shan commented. "Indeed, let us now look at the final option." The figure paused for a bit, then pointed at the third option, which was the golden saber icon. "This option doesn't have any use, nor can it help you in any way. It's only a compass. Where does it point to?" Gu Qing-shan asked. "An answer," the figure replied. "The answer to what? Who are you?" Gu Qing-shan was shocked. Chapter 1404. Looking at the golden sword icon, Gu Qing-shan pondered. During the Age of Old, to create a closed loop of spacetime, the war god Ui once left me and returned to the final moments of my past life, bringing my past self back to the day of my high school graduation. Although the war god Ui left, it left me a copy of war god skills, which was this icon. This icon had gone through the trials of the Earth world with me, the battle between the divine race and the desolate monsters. The golden sword on the icon had grown a bit longer. "Have you made up your mind? Which one do you want to choose?" the figure asked. Gu Qing-shan replied. "Compared to these choices, I'm more interested in who you are." The figure stood in front of her and muttered. "This question is not within the scope of the technique." Gu Qing-shan tried asking, "Are you me from a certain point in time?" "No," the figure replied. "Then, are you me from a certain parallel world?" Gu Qing-shan asked again. The figure replied, "No, the crab wasn't wrong on one point. Parallel worlds are nothing more than a smokescreen, but what it didn't say was that all things and living beings in reality are scattered across all parallel worlds. This world is indeed the strongest reality outside of the inner plane." Hearing that, Gu Qing-shan was shaken. He quickly continued. "Or for example, the fragment of the samsara, after being shattered, it broke into countless pieces and scattered across the starry sea of parallel worlds. The Wraith realm pushed the destruction of the parallel worlds, using fate corrosion to strike the eternal abyss. They most likely originated from a certain parallel world. You reacted very quickly, so you must make your choice now." The figure pointed at the three options in the void of space and said. The scenery around her began to tremble slightly. "This spell can't be maintained for too long, and I'm only a temporary existence, so I can't answer too many of your questions. You have to make a decision within 10 minutes, otherwise, once the spell ends, you'll lose this chance," the shadow urged. Gu Qing-shan lightly nodded. "There's nothing to hesitate about. Although the first two options sound impressive, when it comes to power, as long as I work hard, I'll be able to use other methods to achieve these two abilities sooner or later. The ability to see the future is actually the most unreliable. Not only would it cause me to be deceived if I use it too much. Gu Qing-shan would always remember how the Earth God died. It didn't see the scene of its own death in the future, so it lost some of its caution and died in the past. This matter was actually the true future of its destiny. Also, Lady Undying Sand once said that she could see a few different futures from him, but when he made a new decision, those futures became even more numerous. Gu Qing-shan whispered, "The future is illusory. Trying to understand the future is actually a paradox." "Paradox?" the figure asked in confusion. Gu Qing-shan said slowly, "The cause that all living beings do now determines their effect in the future. But all living beings are fickle. Many people don't know what they will do when they are really standing at the crossroads of fate." "Have you seen something like this before?" the figure asked. Gu Qing-shan showed a look of reminiscence. The moment when hundreds of millions of dead people came to the human world to support the battle replayed in his mind. I once had many comrades, all of whom were heinous criminals in hell, but at a certain crucial moment, they made a decision that even I couldn't imagine. I was very grateful to them, but I also understood that the future is ultimately in everyone's hands. When everyone is united, the future will also change, the figure said. So you weren't willing to choose this option. That's right, Gu Qingshan continued. As for the dimensional travel ability, it can indeed be used to escape at a crucial moment, but after doing it too much, a person would become cowardly. That's why I chose. Wait a minute. The figure suddenly called out. Gu Qingshan was surprised. The figure reached his hand out and tapped the void of space. I didn't think that your understanding had already reached this point. Seems like I'll have to give you something more realistic on the War God UI. The two options, Eye of Truth and Dimensional Travel, slowly fused together to form a new icon. On this icon, there was a long river that flickered with radiance. This is a completely new ability created from the fusion of the two abilities. Return of the Fallen Star, the figure explained. What is this ability? Gu Qingshan asked. The moment before your death, you will return to a certain point in the past and start all over again. The figure lightly explained. You can only use it 7 times, but if you're careful, you'll be able to survive for a very, very long time, the figure added. Gu Qingshan went silent for a while. This is a talisman of immortality, and you're giving it to me just like that? He asked in a low voice. To be able to fuse 2 War God options like this into a near-immortal, Return of the Fallen Star, you must understand the War God UI very well. The figure didn't deny it. It pointed at the void of space. There, 2 icons stood side by side. A long river of light, this was the Return of the Fallen Star. A golden short sword, this was the compass. The figure slowly spoke. I must remind you, with Return of the Fallen Star, you will have 7 chances to start all over again. You will be able to predict what will happen in the long years ahead. These are all things that have already happened. As long as you don't try to change them, they will not change. This is much safer than peeking into the future. This ability will help you overcome all difficulties, allow you to enjoy countless happy moments, enjoy all the beautiful things, reach the pinnacle of your life, and become a truly great person within the space vortex. Or if you don't want to live like that, you can also become a hermit and focus on living your own life. After saying so, the figure pointed at the golden short sword. Gu Qingshan's gaze also fell onto the golden short sword. The figure continued, frowny face, the compass is different. If you want to know who you are, you will have to walk an extremely long and arduous path. You will need to do everything in your power to fight in order to have a chance of survival. Every day, as soon as you open your eyes, you will have to put in endless effort and use all of your intelligence to take a single step forward. Furthermore, you will often fall down, sometimes even having to give up some precious things. Your enemies will only grow more and more numerous, becoming increasingly difficult to deal with. You will be covered in wounds, and if you aren't careful, you will lose your life. Perhaps one day, you will truly succeed and make it to the end. But even if that is the case, the only thing you will gain from this is knowing a single thing. That is who you are. The figure lowered its hand and casually spoke. I've explained the pros and cons of the 2 options, there isn't much time left, so please make your final choice. Gu Qingshan raised her hand and pointed at the golden short sword. Why? The figure asked. I don't know what others think, but I've always felt that there are a lot of shackles in life, like happiness or peace. Gu Qingshan replied. Happiness? Peace? You think they are shackles? The figure repeated. Indeed, living in this world is a very real thing. You can easily feel a lot of pain, a lot of helplessness, especially in this era of apocalypse. People have had enough of suffering and suffering, many of them yearn for peace and happiness. At this point, Gu Qingshan glanced at his younger self. The lonely figure stood in front of the window, thinking of his deceased parents, his heart filled with confusion about his future. The figure looked at him, waiting for what he was going to say next. Gu Qingshan sighed, then continued. I also enjoy happiness and peace, but pain is a true sword. It will constantly remind me that I can't lead a befuddled life, I can't lie down and enjoy a comfortable life, I can't rely on some special ability to stop moving forward. His voice was a bit stiff. A person can't be trapped in peace and happiness, but rather maintain anger, stand up, run, fight, use strength and faith to protect those precious things. For this, I must become stronger. I can't stop moving forward, even if I'm covered in blood, even if I have to pay with my life, I must keep moving forward, only then will I feel that I'm truly alive. The figure went silent for a while. Sometimes, living a stable life isn't a sin, the figure softly said. Of course it isn't a sin. I also agree that there should be a balance between work and rest. In fact, I also like cooking, Gu Qingshan replied. But the most important thing is your heart. You need to know that you are more than this, that there is something you truly want to do, that something is the meaning of your life, and you must fight for it. Gu Qingshan said nothing else. Inside the room, a soft sigh resounded. The figure shook her head, stopped hesitating, and placed her hand on the golden sword icon. There's no turning back. Are you sure you want to choose compass? The figure asked. I'm sure, Gu Qingshan replied. The figure lightly tapped the golden sword icon. A blinding golden glow enveloped the room. A brand new icon appeared on the war god UI. A line of glowing text quickly appeared. Frowny face. New function compass is being created. Please wait for 10 seconds. Taking advantage of this time, the figure walked next to Gu Qingshan and silently observed him. She suddenly reached her hand out and lightly stroked Gu Qingshan's face. The faint voice that couldn't be understood slowly became real. A child, I had wanted to leave you with a stable life, but now that you've become a true man, I will respect your decision. Gu Qingshan's expression changed as she looked down at the figure. A familiar face that only existed in her memories slowly became clear. The situation at the time was too dangerous. I couldn't take you with me. You were too young. You wouldn't survive. Tears flowed. Her eyes were filled with longing and reluctance. The golden glow continued to grow, enveloping everything around her. Her figure slowly disappeared. The war god UI's voice resounded. Frowny face. Compass has been activated. From now on, you may search for the truth of everything. After saying so, the UI returned to silence. Inside the blinding light, Gu Qingshan blankly stood in the narrow room without moving. Behind him, the young him was also staring at the metal city outside the window, also silent. After a long while, a faint voice could be heard. Frowny face. Mother. Chapter 1405. An autumn water clear blue sword descended, lightly hovering next to Gu Qingshan, using the hilt of the sword to poke his shoulder as if to comfort him. Gongzi, that was only a spell just now. I saw that you didn't give me a signal, so I didn't want to do anything, Shanna said. I know. Gu Qingshan didn't look up. Shanna hesitated a bit, then continued. This spell was left behind many years ago. It's about to fade away. I know, Gu Qingshan replied in a low voice. Luo Bingli's voice suddenly came. Your parents might still be alive. That's something to be happy about. The Earth Sword's Wu also came. That's right, old Gu. If you're really unhappy, I'll send 2 chicks to drink with you tonight. The Chao Yin Sword also, Wu in response. The Heaven's Sword and 6 Paths Great Mountain Sword both heavily slapped the Earth Sword, causing it to give off a clear metallic clanging noise. The Chao Yin Sword hurriedly hid into the void of space. Gu Qingshan shook his head, walked to the window, and stood next to his younger self, looking at the gloomy sky outside. The 4 swords all went silent and silently followed behind him. Shanna's voice softened and softly told him, Gongzi, cheer up, the spell is about to completely fade away, we're about to return to the world of living beings. Don't worry, I'm fine. Just like Luo Bingli said, I'm a bit worried about them. I don't know if they're still alive. Gu Qingshan sighed, then continued. It would be great if they were still alive. His gaze fell on his younger self, and he muttered to himself, "You're too young." They purposely made a Return of the Fallen Star for me, probably because they wanted me to live a peaceful life, but they were also afraid that I'd be a restless person, so searching for them would most likely be a dangerous matter in the outside world. But they still missed me, so they made me a compass and let me choose for myself. When you were young, didn't you notice anything different about your parents? Luo Bingley carefully asked. Gu Qingshan stayed silent for a bit, then replied, "Now that I think about it, there really are a lot of suspicious points. When I was young, my parents never cleaned the house, but the house was always clean. My family ran a restaurant in the slums, but it didn't make much money. My dad never took any money from the elderly, but the restaurant never went bankrupt. Our neighborhood was surprisingly safe. Any tattooed gangster would die the next day as soon as they caused trouble. It wasn't until a few months after I became an orphan that there was a murder case. My dad doesn't like those aristocrats of the Nine Lords. He always looks at them like they're a pile of sh*t. So whenever he leaves the slums to do business, it's always easy for him to get into trouble." At the time, my mom worriedly asked him why he always likes to play with sh*t outside, so from then on, my dad rarely goes out. My father would do something strange every day. Sometimes he would blow into the air, and sometimes he would suddenly clap his hands. I asked him curiously, and he always said that learning Qigong for the elderly is good for the body. Shanu chimed in. "Did he teach you anything?" When I was in kindergarten, I told him that I wanted to be a scientist when I grew up. He was very happy and personally helped me with my homework every day. But when I was in elementary school, the homework was too hard, so he said that he was just a person with nothing to do and that he had never learned any scientific knowledge before, so I needed to slowly explore it myself. Gu Qingshan smiled and continued, "My mom, she was an extremely lazy person. She would usually just sit there, blanking out for a few hours at a time, but I still remember one time when she was done blanking out, she proudly hugged me and told me that when you grow up, you'll meet a lot of girls who like you, every single one of them is a good girl, and that you have to help our Gu family grow up. I didn't know what growing up meant at the time, but now I do. It's not too late," Luo Bingley encouraged her. "You still don't understand," the Earth Sword sighed. The two female swords slapped the Earth Sword from behind Gu Qingshan at the same time. Gu Qingshan didn't say anything else and silently looked at the war god UI. On the UI, the golden saber icon silently sat at the very end of the list of icons. Compass. Although the spells around her would soon disappear, and she would soon return to the Saint's spirit world to face the questions of the others, Gu Qingshan still couldn't help but focus her mind and lightly tapped on this icon. Lines of golden light appeared from the icon of the compass, and appeared in the void of space. Frowny face, attention. Here's a message for you. All of a sudden, a lot of voices resounded. Screams, screams, loud clashing of spells, clashing of weapons, loud explosions of spells, and spells continued for 7 to 8 seconds. Finally, all the voices faded away. It was now that a male voice called out, "I'm done, hurry up and record a message for our son." A female voice hurriedly called out, "Son, listen carefully. In the Saint Spirit World's Roland Empire, at the center of the southern wall of the Royal Secret Vault's 5th floor, there is a hidden compartment where we left something for you. If you like it, you can accept it. If you don't like it, you can also accept it. In short, you won't lose anything from this. This Saint Spirit World isn't bad at all. Do your best." At the end, her voice even sounded a bit prideful. A new line of glowing text quickly appeared on the war god UI. Compass hint. Find that thing and you will receive a new clue. Gu Qingshan immediately asked, "Is the new clue related to the item I'm looking for?" Following this, there would be extinct monsters, as well as the schemes of the wraiths, all of which would gradually appear in this world. Come to think of it, when the plague apocalypse first descended, the law of this world requested me to use the corpses of the plague monsters to send a warning to the world. I still haven't finished that, Sir Envoy. I suggest that we depart immediately and report to the Viscount about what happened here, Gu Qingshan said. You're right, the Viscount envoy waved his short staff and lightly tapped the void of space. A gate appeared. Let us go. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.